I woke up in a totally strange world, known as the Great Qin Dynasty, a place that never showed up in my history classes. Back in my old life, I was a survival streamer. I spent my days filming in the wilderness, broadcasting it online, until a wild boar literally rammed me off a cliff. But when my eyes finally opened, I was here. The poor guy whose body I inherited was also named Chu Feng. He had a wife and a 5-year-old daughter, Meow Meow. But his own family treated him terribly. His parents heavily favored his older brother. Just because that brother had a son, while Chu Feng only had a daughter, they gave him the smallest, shabbiest shack with almost no food. The original Chu Feng grew sick from the freezing cold and starvation, and passed away. That is when I took over. Get this, when I arrived, they had not eaten for 2 days. My wife was literally skin and bones, and my poor little girl was constantly crying from hunger. I could not just sit there pitying myself, so I grabbed a bamboo basket and a small hoe, and headed up the mountain to forage for wild greens. The villagers all say this mountain is cursed. An old hunter went up there once and never returned. They only found his body with the organs entirely missing, so nobody goes there, even during this famine. I had no choice. My daughter Meow Meow secretly followed behind me, bringing along our cute little white puppy that I named Ben. But Meow Meow was just so weak and thin, I really worrying she will freeze, because out here in this world, a simple cold can kill. But she is stubborn, so she stays close. Thankfully, my survival skills from my old life kicked in, allowing me to recognize wild plants. I quickly spotted some shepherd's purse plants, along with some wild black nightshade plants. But winter is coming, and almost nothing is growing anymore. Surviving the next few months is going to be brutal. Meow Meow. She hugged my leg, crying that she was hungry. She begged for meat, so I promised I'd get some, even though I knew I never could. Our local town is dirt poor, too. War has pushed food prices sky high, making meat a crazy luxury only the wealthy can afford. Desperate refugees are already wandering outside town, and enemy soldiers could attack our borders any second. But trust me, things only get worse. But just as I picked up my hoe again, Ben suddenly let out a sharp cry. And then, Meow Meow screamed. I gripped my hoe and dashed toward them like a madman. Meow Meow, she shrieked, leaping straight into my arms. Right there stood a wild boar, jet black, staring us down with its tiny green eyes. It wasn't huge, maybe the size of a large dog. It looked skinny, but to my little girl and Ben, it was absolutely terrifying. Ben was completely terrified, too. His tail was tightly tucked between his legs. Yet, that brave little dog wouldn't back down. He stood his ground directly in front of us, barking madly at the boar. Honestly, that's probably why we never ate him, even when we were completely starving. He's family. I pulled Meow Meow behind my back and braced myself. I actually died from a wild boar in my past life, so face to face with another one, my heart was hammering. But then, I noticed something off. The boar's hind leg was clamped in a metal trap. The blood pooling around the wound had already dried, meaning it must have been stuck there for a while. It couldn't move without agonizing pain. I warily scanned our surroundings. Wild boars usually travel in large packs, but this beast was entirely alone. Its herd had likely abandoned it to die. I licked my dry lips. Sure, wild boar meat usually tastes tough and smells pretty foul, but when you haven't eaten in 2 whole days, you don't exactly get to be picky. The organs are still good meat. That rich fat could easily be melted down into cooking oil. Just a single spoonful in any dish would taste absolutely incredible. My wife and daughter had no meat. God knows how long. I absolutely had to catch it. If this boar were healthy, I would have grabbed Meow and run. But since it was limping, all I had was a basket, a short hoe, and some rope. Thanks to my survival training. You see, I knew 100 ways to catch a boar with just that. I tied that rope into a tight lasso, a basic skill. Then I told Meow to hold Ben and hide behind a tree. If the boar came toward them, just run around the trunk to keep it between them. Slowly, I began creeping closer. At 15 meters, the beast got pretty nervous. It started stomping its hooves, huffing heavily. I froze and waited. It calmed down. A good hunter always has patience. I crept closer, down to 10 meters. Suddenly, the boar snapped. It could not handle the pressure anymore and bolted, completely ignoring the pain in its leg. I had to act right now. Watch as I threw that lasso. It landed clean right around the boar. I dashed straight to a tree and wrapped the rope around the trunk. 100-pound boar running full speed. There was absolutely no way to hold it barehanded. But using the tree as an anchor, it was stuck. The boar went crazy, thrashing and pulling while I fought it from behind the trunk. Then, I tied the rope tight to the wood. When I was finally done, sweat was dripping heavily down my forehead. But I thought about my wife. I thought about my daughter, who had never even tasted meat in her life. I pictured warm shepherd's purse and pork dumplings. I slowly picked up my hoe, grabbed the basket, and walked right up to the boar. Tusks sharp, eyes a bloody red, and it was ready to fight to the death. But it was facing a man starving for 2 whole days. "Let us do this," I yelled. I lunged forward and slammed my basket over its head. Snow began falling as I stood there, catching my breath. The beast lay dead at my feet. Blood lay everywhere, my bamboo basket completely shattered, and all my gathered wild vegetables lay scattered on the ground. But little Meow Meow was jumping up and down, screaming, "Meat! We actually have meat!" It proved way tougher than I expected. Even wounded, that stubborn boar fought back. It slammed into me a few times and almost bit me. Luckily for me, my farming hoe was quite sharp and sturdy, and thankfully, the wild boar was not fully grown. Had it been a massive adult, I would never have dared. Watch closely, I had to get this carcass down fast. That heavy blood scent would easily attract wild wolves, or even leopards and bears, so I lashed it with rope, and began dragging it straight downhill. Meow Meow grabbed the dusty rope too. Trying to help, Bin Bin bit the ear and yanked. Working together, the 3 of us finally got it moving. It took 2 hours to get home. Our rundown house sits at the very edge of the village, the absolute smallest hut, right next to the mountain, but somehow, that actually turned out to be quite useful. Absolutely nobody saw me dragging a massive pig back home. I immediately sent Meow Meow to go call her mother. My wife, Jozizi, was already waiting at our door. Worried sick, she suddenly saw the giant pig. She completely froze, so I told her to quit staring and help. Shaking herself out of it, she grabbed the other side. Quite strong, I think. Honestly, she could have carried the whole thing alone. Just look at her, I finally got a clear view. 21, standing 165 centimeters. But she is painfully thin, with sharp cheekbones sticking out, and she looks almost like a completely different person. Yet her eyes remain bright, shining with pure life. We waited until complete darkness to finally butcher the pig. I headed to the village chief's house to borrow his cleaver. In this ancient dynasty, the government strictly controls all metal tools, due to these endless, brutal wars, meaning every single knife is managed by the chief. I just told him I needed it to chop some firewood. He asked absolutely 0 questions. ZZ and I carefully chopped up the hooves, legs and skin, the massive head, then all the organs. We sorted and set everything aside. But the real prize was the belly fat. We slowly rendered every single bit into rich lard. That alone would yield over 10 whole pounds of cooking oil. Little Meow Meow watched us the entire time, drooling so much she almost started chewing on the raw meat. Next, we sliced off some tenderloin and quickly stir-fried it with some fresh wild vegetables. I even found a sweet bonus, the iron trap that caught the beast. It was pretty old and rusty, but iron is iron. In this harsh world where normal folks only own basic iron pots and simple hoes, a metal piece like this could easily be forged into useful tools. And just as we are getting excited, trouble strikes. 2 uninvited guests suddenly slip right through our front door. "Come quick, they are eating without sharing." I instantly recognized my older brother Chulong's annoying voice, calling out, "Smells amazing, Mom. They are eating without sharing." My heart immediately sank. I had only been here a few days, but from the original Chu Feng's lingering memories, I knew this greedy family only ever brought absolute trouble. They totally ignored him, stole his food and always gave him the absolute worst, simply because he raised a daughter instead of a son. My eyes slowly drifted to the cleaver on the ground. Extremely dark thoughts flashed through my mind. In a brutal famine like this, if hungry villagers found out we had a whole pig, literal chaos could break loose. Thankfully, ZZ placed her hand on my shoulder, helping me calm down before I opened the door. My mother, Wei Zizia, and my brother were standing in the yard. She is around 40, sharp and very bossy. Luckily, they did not step inside, since all the butchered pork was hidden in the house, but Chulong began sniffing the air like a dog. He smiled. "That is definitely meat." With greed written all over her face, my mother wasted no time. "Your sister-in-law just gave birth and has no milk. Give him half your meat," I laughed. "Half? So where is our share of the family grain? I have my own land. I grew crops. After the taxes, there should be enough for my family of 3. But you took everything, leaving us just one person's share. She did not flinch. Your sister-in-law finally had a boy, you see. They needed that food way more. You still had some old grain left. Old grain, if we actually had grain. Would Meow Meow be starving like this? Would Zizi be nothing but skin and bones? How can you even say that with a straight face? I stood up, grabbed my meat cleaver, taking a few steps forward. That got their attention. This quiet pushover who never once talked back. I pointed directly at our house. No windows. Cracks in every single wall stuffed with straw. And the fence around the yard was falling apart. Easily the absolute worst house in the village. You gave all my hard-earned food to my brother. You gave me the absolute worst house. And when I asked you to watch Meow, Meow, you fed bread to his kid, but only gave my daughter water. And now you want half my meat. Why should I? Honestly, this made me so mad. I could live with a bad house and no grain. But mistreating my little girl, no parent can ever accept that. My mother's response was ice cold. She is just a girl, a money-losing deal. She is not even part of the Chu family. Your brother's sons carry on the family name. That is what matters. Now hand over the meat, and come, plant winter wheat for your brother's family tomorrow. I went quiet. There is just no reasoning with people like this. But then she started walking toward the house, ready to take the meat herself. I slammed the heavy cleaver into the dirt, right in front of her feet. She turned pale while Chu Long shrieked. Chu Feng, what are you doing? Would you really kill your mother and brother? Before Chu Long could even finish screaming, my mother slapped him right across the face. He looked utterly confused. So was I. Then she snapped, why are you shouting? You want the whole village to know we have meat. Unbelievable. So that was her game. She already treated my stuff as hers. Turning to me, she put on a heavy, serious voice. Your brother's child is your own nephew. You cannot just let them starve. As the second son, you have a real responsibility. I shot right back, where was that responsibility? When my own family was starving, you literally took my entire share of grain just to feed him instead, claiming we still had old grain left over. But if that were actually true, would Meow Meow and Zizi look like walking skeletons? Her reply was the same heartless, cold nonsense. Everything must be for the family. The Chu family will keep you fed, but not that useless daughter of yours. You want food, tell your wife to have a boy. Honestly, I almost laughed right there. Suddenly, Chu Long spotted the iron trap on the ground, with a small pig's foot still caught inside. His eyes went wide with pure greed. I quickly snatched it up and told them. The trap only caught a single leg. We already ate, so all that's left is this little trotter. They clearly didn't believe me, but I didn't care. But when Chu Long tried to force his way inside, I raised that heavy cleaver and aimed it right at him. Just try it. Even Bin Bin jumped up, snarling and baring his teeth, making Chu Long freeze. Cold sweat instantly ran down his face. He had never seen Chu Feng act this terrifyingly. Fine. He backed down, utterly terrified. Just share some food, or hand over your cotton jacket. I told him to trade his jacket for the pig's foot. He stood there completely shocked. After all, a winter cotton coat is worth a fortune. It is a luxury only the wealthy can normally afford. So, he started whining to my mother. But she just marched over and ripped it right off him. Pig trotter soup, she muttered. This will help your wife nurse the baby. Quiet down, she snapped, tossing the jacket to me. I threw the trotter to him, and they finally left. Man, what a massive relief to see them go. I seriously do not get how the original Chu Feng ever tolerated being pushed around like such a doormat. But I am a different man. What is mine, I will protect. Zizi looked up at me, clearly worried. In this harsh era, defying your own parents is a pretty major sin, but I had to do it for her sake. And I would too. I handed her the warm cotton coat to wash. It would keep us much warmer during the freezing nights. Then, she began hanging the wild pork over the hearth to cure it into smoked, preserved meat. I am not a huge fan of unsalted smoked meat, but she was thinking ahead for us. Deboning and trimming the fat would make it last for months. Besides, there was not really that much meat anyway. Looking around our crumbling, run-down home, cracked walls and not a single window. Even the fence was trashed. There was so much to repair. We had to eat, and this is where things get pretty interesting. What if I became a professional hunter? My wilderness survival skills are definitely my greatest asset here. With enough successful hunts, I could easily keep my family fed, and trade any surplus meat in town for actual grain and currency. As long as the raging war does not find us here, we could easily survive. That evening, I told Zizi my plan to head out hunting tomorrow. but she quickly reminded me that the village chief had scheduled a mandatory meeting for all local men. I almost brushed it off entirely. Then, I remembered. Back when the original Chu Feng was incredibly sick with a fever, he sent medicine. It did not save him, but that kindness was incredibly real, so I figured I should hit the meeting first. Then I'd head out to hunt tomorrow morning. Thick, heavy snow had completely buried our village. I made my way over to the chief's place to return his cleaver, but my brother, Chu Long, was already inside, running his mouth off, telling everyone I found fresh meat on the mountain, and that I disrespected him and our mother. Some local punk named Wang Wei, a real troublemaker, was loudly boasting. He swore he'd trash me and make me beg. But the second I entered, holding that blood-stained, heavy cleaver, my expression was freezing cold like winter. Everyone froze, and you can guess why. The village chief, Dudahai, just stared. He told me later he'd only seen eyes like mine on bandits who raided this very village years ago. I simply handed back his cleaver and left. I didn't stay for their meeting. It had absolutely nothing to do with me. Once I walked out, Chu Long and Wang Wei started talking tough again. Chu Long even threatened to cut our family's food grain, starting immediately. Meanwhile, I headed straight to the mountain, cold Yulong Mountain. Everything had turned pure white. Today, I was way better prepared. Wearing that warm cotton jacket I traded for, wrapped up in animal skins, I brought along my hoe and the iron trap. I'd stayed up all night studying it. The spring inside was made of tough deer tendon. That gave it serious power, but it was wearing out fast. It probably only had 2 more uses left. Still, that strong tendon was highly useful. With some proper wood, I could fashion a bow and arrows. And that was today's main goal, finding some high-quality wood for a bow. That wild pig meat back home would last a while, so hunting wasn't urgent, but if a target popped up, I wouldn't let it slide. Up on that freezing mountain, silence was absolute. Suddenly, I spotted fresh tracks in the snow. I found deer hoof prints. They were brand new, meaning it was definitely nearby. I tracked it all morning, foraging along the snowy path for wild vegetables. I only found a few, being careful not to dig too deep. Other villagers had tried hunting on this mountain before. That old trap I found probably belonged to them. It is pretty dangerous up here in snow. You cannot see the ground clearly. One bad step and you will break your leg. If you wander too far, you are doomed. That is your death sentence, out in the wild. Suddenly, things got pretty creepy. I was being followed. Chu Long must have blabbed about my meat supply. And now some greedy villager wanted to steal my source. I quickly scaled a massive pine. Huge tree. It would take 5 people to wrap their arms around. I climbed onto a low branch and waited. Sure enough, a shadow came rushing toward my tree, searching frantically. Recognizing his face made me freeze up in disbelief. But I made my move instantly. Clutching my hoe tight, I leapt from the branch. I plummeted straight down from the tall branch and slammed right on top of him. My sharp hoe stopped a hair from his throat. And guess who? It was Chief Duhai. I quickly faked shock. Chief, what on earth are you doing here? He was shaking as he stammered out his excuse. I came hunting. I slowly got off him while keeping my gaze locked. He usually commanded total respect in our village. Yet here he was, looking completely terrified of me. He was telling the truth. Being chief does not pay a dime. The poor guy was starving, just like everyone else. He had always been too terrified of the forest, terrified of those creepy legends. But seeing me bring back meat changed his mind. He stalked me here, and then grabbed something from his pouch. Having an axe in this dynasty, axes are strictly banned here. If the officials caught you with one, your entire family would be executed. Yet, he begged me to help him hunt, offering the axe as a gift. I took it, a pretty good deal anyway. If you wanted to hunt together, just say so, I told him, following someone through the woods. I might think you are trying to rob me, but his bag was still bulging. He pulled out an unstrung bow, old, worn out, and covered in dark stains. Another forbidden weapon, and get this, by handing me these, he was literally putting his life in my hands. If I snitched, his entire family would be ruined. That proved he truly meant no harm. Suddenly, we heard a strange rustling. We scrambled up a tree, fast. A whole herd of beasts bolted right below us. Rock sheep. I was completely stunned. These creatures normally live high up in the mountains. What were they even doing down here? This made me seriously question where I actually was in this world. I desperately needed a map. Duhai grabbed my arm, eagerly gesturing for me to attack. But I stayed still. Those sheep were running way too fast, almost like something was chasing them. And then, a snow leopard appeared, pure white with black spots. It stopped right under our tree, staring directly up at us with icy, cold eyes. Duhai panicked, nearly slipping off his branch. Trust me, if that massive cat leaps and grabs your neck, you are done. I was not planning to fight it, but I was not terrified either. Snow leopards are not that huge, only about the size of a large dog, and the fact that it was chasing sheep, without actually attacking, meant it was probably targeting the easy, younger prey. It could not take down a full-grown sheep anyway. While we waited, I quietly got to work. Using the forbidden axe, I chopped some branches, and carved them into sharp stakes. Wooden arrows too. I pulled a deer tendon from an old trap, and strung it onto the chief's bow. Just like that, I had a weapon. Before my old life streaming games online, I had served in the military, trained in archery, climbing and riding. Those survival skills are about to pay off big. Looking back down the slope, the leopard was gone, and Dudahai sighed in relief. The rock sheep had circled back, heading right back uphill. I carefully scanned the entire herd. The adult sheep were way too massive. Even the leopard avoided them. I needed a young target. This bow was untested, and I had no idea if it was strong enough to pierce an adult's thick hide. Then I spotted a young lamb, smaller than the rest. Found one, I muttered. Dudahai watched in confusion as I drew the string back and fired. Bullseye, the arrow goes right through its neck. The herd of rock sheep barely even blinked, running off without a single care. The chief, Dudahai, slid down from the tree next to me, staring in total shock. You can shoot. I smiled, saying I learned a bit. We carried the lamb together, one grabbing the head, the other the legs, hurrying fast down the mountain. That leopard could return at any moment, especially if it caught the scent of blood. The chief told me to quickly disassemble and hide it. Next, he handed me both the bow and an axe. Keep them, I don't hunt. They are useless to me. I was stunned. These are highly illegal under this dynasty. The government forbids common folk from carrying weapons, but out here, far from their reach, they could easily save my life. I asked why. He always told villagers the mountain was cursed. He sighed and explained, right on the other side of Yulong Mountain lies the enemy nation of Sia. That mountain is completely crawling with spies, outlaws on the run from both sides, and some pretty dangerous tribes living up there. You might survive the wild beasts, but against those savages, zero chance. An old hunter who died up there years ago had his organs neatly removed. No wild beast does that while leaving the rest intact. Now that definitely gave me some serious food for thought. We got back to my house, where Zizi and Meow Meow were waiting. Zijiao's pretty smile froze the moment she noticed the village chief with me, but he quickly broke the awkward silence, calling me a pretty good man, explaining how I gave him the lamb's brain, front hooves, and organs, which he took gratefully. He then explained his son, Da Huan, was down with the cold that killed the original owner. Chu Feng, the town doctor, said he needed fresh meat, or he might not survive the winter. That's why the chief had to risk heading into the mountain carrying those illegal weapons. Afterwards, I carefully skinned the lamb, since the hide was valuable, then butchered the rest. I told Zizi to get a fire going tonight, for some hot lamb organ soup. Her eyes lit up as I stored everything away, hanging up the rest to dry. I didn't even bother hiding any of it, and trust me, I planned on bringing back way more. Since the village would find out sooner or later, there was no point pretending. I hid the bow and axe under the bed. Those items were different, though. If anyone reported me to the town officials, it would mean some massive trouble. Later, I was outside, chopping firewood when Shulong swaggered up to my door. He was holding this massive steaming bun, waving it in my face, asking if I finished that pig leg. Mocking my food, he bragged about what he had instead, showing off his single bun as if it were a legendary treasure. I completely ignored him, but the guy just wouldn't shut up. This guy stands at my door, bragging about how our mother took my family's grain for next month, swapping it for some flour and salt. Just to make him to big buns, he bites into one right in front of me, grinning. Want some? Too bad. It is all in my belly now, but I did not care. Those buns were made of pretty rough, dark flour. Nothing compared to the premium flour from my past life. They looked like they would scratch your throat. Next, he tries showing off the bun to Meow. But my brave little girl does not back down one bit. I do not want your stinky bun. It smells worse than Ben. Daddy brings home meat. Who needs your stupid bun? I burst out laughing. That is my girl. Then Chulong says something nasty about her attitude. I grab the cleaver and step right forward, He shuts his mouth incredibly fast, yet he keeps hanging around, holding that half-eaten bun in the air like a trophy. Watch what happens when the kitchen aroma hits him. Zizi brings out a big bowl of thick, milky white lamb soup, with massive chunks of meat floating on top, and fresh green onions sprinkled over it. She serves a bowl for each of us, me, her, and Meow Meow. The soup tastes absolutely incredible. Young lamb has almost no gamey smell, and with a pinch of salt, it is unbelievably delicious. Chu Long's jaw nearly drops. He tries to save face, mocking our soup. No bread, how sad. Go home, apologize to mother on your knees, and she will give you rough flour for flatbread. But watch who suddenly shows up right behind him. Move aside, Chu Long. Chu Long scrambles out of the way, putting on a fake smile for the chief. What are you doing at Chu Feng's house? Bringing him fine flour. He did me a huge favor today. The chief opened up his bag. 2 pounds of the absolute finest village flour. Chu Long's eyes went completely wide. No one in the village had flour this good. Only the chief's family owned any. And now he was gifting it to me. Village chief, why give premium flour to this useless loser? Chu Long blurted. The chief just stared, useless. Then he let out a cold, mocking laugh. He walked right past him into my yard without a word. I thanked him and promised him I would use some flour to make stuffed buns. Using the remaining wild vegetables and meat, I offered some soup, which he tried refusing. But nobody wastes food in times like these. But Xiao already filled a bowl to the brim with rich, white broth overflowing with savory lamb organs. The chief couldn't refuse. Chu Long stood outside. Talk about being green with envy. He mechanically shoved the rest of his bun down his throat and yelled, just you wait. I am telling mother about this. You have meat and you are not sharing it. That steaming bowl of hot lamb soup put the chief in a great mood. He realized I could be an asset to the village. Everyone was struggling since the harvest had shrunk, while taxes kept rising, leaving the entire village barely able to surviving purely on stale leftover grain. But now, they had a hunter who could get meat, and honestly, that was our ticket to survival. I felt relieved he supported my hunting. At first, I tried hiding the wild boar, fearing their jealousy, or some kind of ban on hunting in the mountains. But the chief just laughed. People are literally starving here. Who cares about rules right now? He handed me the axe and bow, which would make my hunting way more efficient. Plus, I already had pig and sheep skins ready, things I could easily sell in town for some rice and flour. Honestly, things were looking up before he left. I asked him for a favor, helping me repair my house. Doing it alone was impossible since the walls had huge gaps, a pretty crumbling foundation and a completely ruined fence. Plus, I needed a new woodshed built. I knew as I kept hunting, more greedy guys like Chu Long would soon come sniffing around. I couldn't stay isolated. My daughter needed playmates. My wife really needed neighbors, and I absolutely needed help. Better to build goodwill now. The chief gathered the village men. Once he told them I'd feed everyone meat for helping. No joke, they stampeded to my house. Even Wang Wei, the exact guy who wanted to beat me up yesterday, came running along, even if he grumbled the whole way. Once they arrived, and saw 20 pounds of pork and lamb hanging in my yard, they went silent, then they erupted. Tell us what to do. One guy asked if his wife could come help too. Another asked for a small piece to bring back home to his parents. So I just smiled and happily agreed to everything. But I wasn't stupid. I only brought out 20 pounds and told everyone that was all I had. The rest stayed hidden because in times like these, displaying too much meat could easily make you a target. Everyone worked like crazy. Men mixed up mud and packed down the foundation, while others cut trees and built the woodshed. They fixed the fence. Women came too, boiling water and helping ZZ cook all that meat. Some even brought wild vegetables for the pot. Those 2 pounds of fine flour became flatbread instead of buns, since there were just so many hungry mouths to feed. In just 4 hours, most of the work was done. My house had solid walls now, along with a real fence and proper woodshed. If I had done this alone, it would have taken months. Honestly, Wang Wei worked harder than anyone. He looked so embarrassed for believing those lies Chu Long spread about me. He hunts on that cursed mountain and shares his meat with the whole village. He is definitely not the villain Chu Long claimed. Right as I called everyone to wash up, my mother's voice pierced the air from the door. Chu Feng, you actually have real meat. She stared directly at the sliced pieces, fists clenched, teeth grinding. You won't share with your own family, but you'll hand it over to strangers. My mother stormed into the yard, shaking with pure rage. How dare you give food to these peasants? You are a Chu. Everything you have belongs to the Chu family. I stood there, face blank. This is mine. This meat goes to whoever I want. The village chief, Du Hai, stepped in before I could say more. Who do you think you are, Wei Xiaoshui? Acting like your family is some noble clan. You are just villagers like the rest of us. That opened the floodgates. The other villagers started speaking up. Wang Wei, the guy who wanted to beat me yesterday, called them out. Taking care of your mother is a duty, but I have never heard of any duty. To feed a grown brother hiding behind his mommy, and a bunch of lazy men who won't lift a finger. Chu Long's eyes went wide. Talk about a betrayal. His best friend turned. Wang Wei rolled up his sleeves and stepped forward. Chu Long immediately ducked behind our mother. The crowd burst out laughing. So that's your so-called superior family. One brother risks his life on a cursed mountain, just to feed his wife and daughter, while the other still hasn't even been weaned. I did not even need to speak. The villagers could see it for themselves. I shared food with neighbors who helped me, while my mother and brother only ever took ZZ. Meanwhile, the other women finished up the flatbread, making about 20 or 30 palm-sized pieces from that fine flour. Hot meat soup and fresh bread for everyone. People's faces lit up, some eating quite slowly, crying as they chewed. Others wolfed it down in just 3 bites, while eyeing their neighbors' bowls. A few quietly set half aside to take back home, to feed their families. We ate comfortably. Suddenly, Meow Meow spit out a stray bone. Bin Bin snatched it up, holding his head high, and proudly strutted back to his little bed, without even looking back. Meanwhile, my mother and Chu Long just stood there in the yard. Their stomachs growled loud enough for everyone to hear. Chu Long weakly tugged on our mother's sleeve, whining like a little kid. Mom, I am hungry. That bun was too rough. Give me meat soup. And this is her breaking point. She suddenly lunged at the villagers, trying to snatch bowls right out of their hands. Stop eating. This is Chu family meat. You have no right, but nobody even cared. These were starving men with hot food right in front of them. If she got too close, they would have kicked her. They only held back because she was my mother. In the end, she couldn't grab even one bowl. So I stepped right up and made it pretty simple. Stay and work, and you eat. Make trouble. Get out. My mother stands there stunned. Prepare for the explosion. You dare speak like that to your own mother. I let it all out. You are my mother. But you took my grain and let my daughter starve. You threw us into this broken down house, where we freeze every single night. You let my brother come here and cause absolute trouble. Whenever he wants. What kind of actual mother does that? Then I said the one word she never expected. If you keep this up, we are cutting ties. Take my farmland. But after that, done. Do not ever come to my house begging for anything again. Nothing here belongs to the Chu family anymore. She went completely quiet, eyes wide. Before, normally, she would have cut ties without even blinking. But now, she saw all that meat, the soup, and the chief praising my hunting skills. Suddenly, I was actually worth keeping around. Chu Long quickly rushed in to smooth things over. Mom, you cannot cut ties. Still, I gave my family one last chance. Work and eat, or leave, and Chu Long caved. I will work. He got half a bowl of soup and a piece of bread. Happily, he ate, and even asked to be called next time there was work. My mother refused and just walked away. By late afternoon, the villagers had finished everything. Our house was transformed, with walls sealed tight. They built a proper, tall woodshed, and a sturdy fence around our yard. Doing this alone would have taken me months. Once everyone left, I asked the chief about my family's real history. He told me the Chu family arrived 30 or 40 years ago. They had over a dozen people, including several obvious servants, but they scattered over the years, leaving only the main family. It confirmed exactly what I suspected. The Chu family used to be incredibly wealthy, maybe even nobility, which explained my mother's attitude. She always acted like she was above everyone else. But none of that matters now. They live in the exact same poor village as everyone. Suddenly, the chief warns me of something huge. Tax collectors come every single month now. It used to be just once a year, then twice, and now every month. If they search my house and find meat but no grain, there will be massive trouble. He told me to trade some meat for grain in town, before the next collection arrives. That evening, I held Zizi and Meow Meow in the doorway, staring at our cozy little home. The walls were sealed and the room was warm. For the first time, Meow Meow jumped on the heated bed and rolled around, happily laughing for days. Those drafty walls leaked freezing air, keeping the bed freezing no matter how hot we cranked the heat. But now, The room was incredibly cozy. Then Zizi hugged me. She whispered to me that I was absolutely amazing. With her face turning bright red, I lifted her up onto the bed, teasingly promising to show her something even more incredible, making her blush and whisper about Meow Meow. Pointing out Meow Meow was right there. She would fall asleep pretty soon anyway. And just like that, we hear a creepy scratching at the fence. I instantly froze, though Zizi noticed nothing. Sneaking over to our newly repaired window, I cracked it open. The thick snow outside made everything glow faintly, brighter than our pitch-black room. And standing right there in the yard, I spotted a massive snow leopard, white fur covered in black spots, staring directly at our house. A sudden chill ran through me. That exact snow leopard from the mountain had actually tracked us all the way to our home. If it were just me, I wouldn't be quite so worried. Just grab my axe and fight. But Zizi and Meow Meow were right inside. They could not protect themselves against a predator like this. I carefully peeked through the window. The snow still made everything outside glow faintly, letting me see the creature clearly. White fur and dark spots moving through my yard. Our fence was about 1.5 meters tall. But look at this, that massive cat clears it like nothing. Fortunately, we had just reinforced the house walls earlier today. Before those repairs, that leopard could have easily strolled right inside. This was on me, butchering that pig and lamb, spending 2 whole days cooking and butchering. The strong scent of blood and meat carried straight up the mountain. It was starving, making it desperate enough to raid a human settlement. Quietly, I reached under the bed and grabbed my axe. Zizi pulled my arm, completely confused. I whispered to her that there was a massive cat outside. Meanwhile, Meow Meow was already snoring on the bed. Kids sleep through absolutely anything, which meant I had to handle this threat alone. I quickly told Zizi to lock the door behind me. She desperately begged me to stay inside and lock it. It will leave when it can't find food. But I shook my head. All our meat is in the shed. That is our entire food supply for the winter. And that thin roof is not reinforced. If that beast jumps up, it will crash right through. I have to scare it off for good, or the damn thing will keep returning. In my previous life, I had faced bears, venomous snakes, and all sorts of extremely dangerous creatures. During my outdoor wilderness streams, never a leopard, but snow leopards are pretty small. Maybe 30 or 40 kilograms against my 80. Size matters out here, so watch how I kick this door, roaring and swinging my heavy axe. The startled beast instantly leapt onto the woodshed roof, crouching low, growling fiercely at me. It could smell the fresh meat right below its paws. Too hungry, it refused to back down. We just stared each other down. Then, I quietly slipped into the kitchen and scooped some glowing hot coals from the stove. I quickly grabbed my homemade pig fat torch, because no wild animal on earth is brave against fire. The second I stepped outside with the bright flame, panic instantly filled the leopard's eyes. It leapt straight off the roof, cleared our fence, bolting straight back toward the mountain. Zizi ran out and threw her arms around me. She said I scared her to death, but we're okay. I comforted her, patting her back. But between you and me, I knew things weren't fine. We are in a high-altitude area. Heavy snow just keeps falling. The wild beasts on the mountain are completely out of food, which drives them down to where humans live. They are not just stealing scraps. Hungry predators right in your yard means absolute danger. I cautiously checked the woodshed. All our meat lay frozen deep under snow piles, while the smoked pork hung temptingly from the rafters. That is what drew the leopard. Meanwhile, Bin Bin was inside, sleeping like a total rock through the whole ordeal. If that savage leopard had broken in, the stupid dog would be dead. I scolded him for doing nothing but sleeping, but he just woke up and started running around me, acting completely clueless. I definitely was not about to wait for its return, so I grabbed the old iron trap, tightened the tough deer tendon springs, and rigged it right on top of the woodshed. Then I slapped a pound of lamb meat as bait, and set up tight rope snares around it, just to make sure if that beast actually returned, it was trapped. Besides, that leopard pelt is worth more than pig or sheepskin. Then I crawled back into bed with Zizi. She asked if the beast would come back. I promised her it would die. After that, I drifted straight off to sleep. No telling how long I slept, before the chief started yelling like crazy outside. His loud screaming woke me right up from my sleep. Wake up, the officials are here for the grain. I bolted straight up, knowing something was seriously wrong. The last tax collection happened barely 2 weeks ago, and they were only supposed to show up monthly. The war must be getting pretty brutal. And the worst part, I had absolutely zero grain. But when I swung the door open, there stood Dota High, holding a half-filled sack of grain on his shoulder, maybe 30 or 40 pounds, which he actually took from his own family stash. I was genuinely touched. Most families in the village only had about 100 pounds left to survive the freezing 6-month winter ahead, so giving me this much was a massive sacrifice. He said his boy only survived because of the meat I shared, meaning he owed me a life-saving debt. Deep down, I knew he wanted me to keep hunting, so his family could eat too. But the kindness was real regardless. As we headed down toward the village square, I told him all about the snow leopard. He immediately offered to rally some men to catch it, but I refused. No one should risk getting hurt. Facing a deadly predator like that, I would handle it myself. When we arrived, all the villagers were already lined up. 2 armed imperial officers stood by a cart, checking off names on a list. Then I heard Chu Long's loud voice, complaining that Chu Feng has not arrived yet. Every villager glared right at him. The officer snapped right back. If your family has not officially split yet, then you have to pay his share. Chu Long screamed back that they split long ago. My mother stood beside him, completely silent, silently confirming it. Then Chu Long saw me walking up empty-handed. Watch this, his eyes lit up with a nasty gleam. Look, officers, he brought absolutely no grain. Arrest him. Instantly, the 2 officers drew their swords. My mother just stood there silently watching everything, cold as stone, but the villagers would not allow it. What kind of family reports their own blood? We will pay, do not take him. Every single one of them stood up for me. Hearing their kind words, my anger melted away. But my mother screamed over everyone. This is strictly Chu family business. Then she turned to me with her toxic offer. I will pay your tax, but you and your wife must move back to the main household. You already know what she is pulling here. They did not want me back for family unity. All they wanted was my hunting kills. The exact moment I stopped being useful, they would kick me out onto the streets again. Is this really about me coming home? Or is it about the meat sitting in my yard? I asked. She snapped. You are a Chu. Everything you own belongs to this family. Kneel, apologize, and I will pay your tax. She really thought she had me cornered. This whole thing was completely planned. She only gave him food for 2 people, knowing they would absolutely run out of food beforehand. A cheap trick to force his hand. What if he refused? He asked. Chu Long immediately jumped in. Lock him up, officers. Tear his house apart and arrest him. The local villagers were furious, grinding their teeth. Seriously, who treats their own family this badly? Prison during wartime is basically a death sentence. You might never survive, his mother warned one last time. Would he crawl back? Absolutely not. Chu Long's eyes flared with rage. He was still bitter about working for mere soup the day before, believing this lesser son owed everything to the main household. He spun around and yelled at the guards. He refuses to pay or cooperate. Do your duty and take him. The 2 soldiers stared at him, highly amused. Got no food, kid. But he didn't back down. He demanded to know why tax came 2 weeks early, especially since it was supposed to be monthly. The crowd wanted answers too, but fear kept them entirely silent. The guards sneered at their questions. It is every 2 weeks now, pay or go to prison. The crowd panicked because the winter crops were not ready. Our mothers are starving, our children have nothing. But then the blades came out. Talk about terrifying. Instant, heavy silence filled the air. Luckily, Chief Duhai stepped in to stop the violence. He quietly handed over the food, covering the tax for both families. The guards waited. They grabbed it and quickly left. Chu Long was absolutely stunned. Where did you get that? It must be stolen. Duhai's face darkened instantly. Stolen? That food was kept with mine. Are you accusing the chief of theft too? Chu Long shut his mouth immediately. Then the chief turned to face the entire village. In this village, we stick together. Reporting your own family to the law. That will never happen again. Wei Xiaoshu, no more. This is your first and final warning. Do it again, and we drive you out of here. Being expelled during wartime absolutely terrified them. Basically certain death. They quietly slunk away, without a word. But everyone else in the village looked miserable. Wang Wei sank down into the snow, head in hands. With grain tax collections every 2 weeks, no supplies would last. People were definitely going to starve. That's when Wang Wei speaks up. Check this out. Why don't we all just go hunting with Chu Feng? The chief scolded him. Hunting is too dangerous. But Wang Wei pushed back. Chu Feng does it. Why can't we? Another young guy, Sun Can, chimed in. You kept telling us the mountain was cursed. Yet you let Chu Feng go up there. He feasts on meat while we starve here. That is not fair. The chief could see. He was not going to stop them this time. He agreed. but set 3 strict rules. First, everyone listens to my commands. I have far more experience than you boys. No wandering off alone. The group stays together. And third, no fighting over prey, everything is shared equally. That way, the whole village survives. I agreed, since we spotted a herd of rock sheep up there, catching just who would feed the entire village. Then, look who steps forward next. The chief's frail son, Dijun. At 26, he'd been sickly and weak his entire life. I could tell instantly it was just severe malnutrition, which completely wrecked his immune system. Back in my previous world, some basic medicine and real food would easily fix him. But here, simply staying alive was a miracle. He desperately begged his father to let him tag along. If you will not let me go, I will run into the mountains alone and never return. I would rather die than go on being a burden. The chief's face twisted with pure pain. Still, he finally had to agree. But you must follow Duhai's orders. He turned to the crowd, shouting, "Go home, grab your gear and meet at Chu Feng's. We are hunting today." And the crowd dispersed. That is when I spotted Chu Long. He was lurking behind a house, watching. He kept muttering to himself about hunting, following that lucky loser with the pig leg. I will make sure you all rot in jail. Over 20 of us started climbing the mountain. Every single household sent one young person. Our youngest was only 14. The oldest was Chief Duhai, in his 40s. Everyone was bundled up incredibly thick, trudging through the deep snow. Watch closely. I noticed something pretty interesting. Almost every family had illegal weapons hidden away. Axes, sickles, even an old sword. Duhai made everyone swear to keep completely quiet. Anyone who squeals on us will face our strict village rules. Back then, village punishment often meant death. No one argued. I grabbed my axe and bow. I replaced the deer tendon bowstring with some twisted cotton hemp rope and carved out some wooden arrows. Not sure if they would actually work, but it was something. We walked in formation. The chief and I scouted up front. Wang Wei and Sun Ken took the rear, keeping everyone else in the middle. Our target was that same herd of rock sheep. Back there, Wang Wei was eagerly showing off a sword. His grandfather had left from his army days. He and Sun Ken talked pretty big, claiming the mountain was not actually dangerous, and that the chief was just exaggerating everything. But wait, they spot a rabbit. A dark gray wild rabbit about 15 meters away. Wang Wei got excited and whispered to Sun Ken that they should sneak off and catch it themselves. Only the two of them. That way, they wouldn't have to share with 20 people. Du Chang, the chief's son, warned them to stay back. They just laughed and snuck away after that rabbit. 3 hours into the trek, the villagers began complaining. "Where are these sheep?" they whined. "We have been walking forever." The chief shut that down fast. "You think Chu Feng just got lucky out there?" He tracked for 3 hours alone, found the herd, with a snow leopard stalking the sheep, and still brought down a lamb, right under that predator's nose. "That is how you got your hot soup yesterday, and yet you complain about walking." The villagers stared at me with a whole new respect. They assumed I had just gotten lucky. Now, they finally realized hunting is exhausting. Suddenly, Du Chang stumbled up to us, completely panicking. Wang Wei and Sun Ken chased after a rabbit. That was 30 minutes ago, and they are still missing. The chief absolutely exploded. He slapped Du Chang so hard it knocked him down. "I explicitly ordered everyone to stay together," he roared. "Why did you not tell me immediately?" I pulled the chief back, warning him that blaming people won't help. We just need to find them. This mountain was absolutely massive, buried under heavy snow. Gone for over an hour now. They were probably lost out there. But getting lost with hungry beasts out there, complete death sentence. I made a split-second call. We cannot divide our forces to search. We have already lost 2 people. Splitting up just means losing more. So, I ordered Du Chang to guide the rest of the villagers back home. He knew the path, and everyone else was freezing anyway. Totally wiped out after 3 hours. Honestly, some had wanted to turn back long ago, but were too embarrassed to speak. "But what about Wang Wei and Sun Ken?" someone shouted. "But too many people is a major liability. Not a help." I told them the chief and I would stay behind to find them. The others had to get home before dark, so they headed back under Du Chang's lead. Just the chief and I. We returned to where those 2 had wandered off. Tracking their footsteps was pretty easy. Deep marks cut straight through heavy snow, leading straight in. I pulled out my hunting axe now. "Just us 2 now. Stay sharp." "Understood," the chief nodded. We tracked them deeper into the wilderness, but the mountain winds grew fierce. We kept pushing up the steep slopes. Our vision faded fast. The tracks were quickly disappearing. 30 minutes more, and the fresh snow would erase everything. Beside me, Dutoi panted heavily. He was totally panic-stricken. Everyone knew those men went out on his watch. If those two never returned, how could he face their families? And then, I spotted something that froze me. Right beside their tracks were massive paw prints. They were wide, round, with long claws. Cat-like pads, but way larger. A snow leopard. I warned the chief we had 30 minutes left. If we do not find them soon, we had to turn back. He agreed. He felt guilty, but he was not dying for foolish rule breakers. We kept climbing until we hit a peak. This was not the main Yulong summit, just a smaller, frozen ridge right above our village. Directly ahead, the terrain sloped downward, dropping straight into the deep wilderness. It was deadly territory. He wanted to stop. I begged him for one more minute. Then I quickly scaled a tall pine. From the top, I searched the snowy woods for one clue. Bright red blood would scream against the white. Seeing no red meant they were still safe. Then, I spotted red towards the southeast, leading straight down, deeper into the range. My heart completely sank. They were hurt and running away from us. Definitely not toward us. Whatever hit them was bad enough. They just couldn't turn back. I scrambled down to our group and told the chief. He gripped his heavy cleaver, swearing quietly under his breath. But looking at his eyes, he clearly wanted to go after them. Ultimately, he left the choice to me. I had to think fast. Wang Wei and Sun Ken weren't actually bad guys. Sure, Wang Wei talked too much and loved showing off. But when my house needed repairs back then, he worked the hardest, and Sun Ken was quiet and decent. They were just young and reckless, not evil, and nothing like Chulong. Let's go down for one quick look. If we still can't find them there, we head right back. We headed down the slope, entering a flat, pine-filled valley. Then we heard it, the low, menacing growl of a snow leopard. Surprisingly, that was actually good news. A lone snow leopard is pretty manageable. Its combat power is roughly equal to one grown man, and there were going to be 4 of us. I spotted blood trails. We were getting pretty close. As we climbed over a small, snowy hill, we finally spotted them, Wang Wei and Sun Ken. They were sitting back to back in the deep snow, bound tightly with rope. Sun Ken had deep cuts all over his face and arms. Wang Wei's lower body was completely covered in blood. He was slumped over, barely even moving. Their wounds weren't from wild animal claws. Someone had deliberately done this to them. I grabbed the chief before he could charge down there. Wait, look closely. Suddenly, the snow leopard burst out of the bushes and bolted straight into the deep mountain wilderness. As it vanished, 3 men stepped out from the trees. They wore heavy armor and military boots, each holding a sharp curved sword. They sported long, ugly beards, whips hanging from their belts, and fur ear covers, shaking with laughter as they watched the leopard run. But the moment Duduhai spotted them, he immediately dove flat into the cold snow, his face pale with fear. I couldn't recognize those strange, ragged uniforms from any known army in our entire land. Who are they? I whispered softly. Desia soldiers, he hissed back. Keep your head down, because if they see us, we are dead. Seriously, seeing them was a total first. They spoke a language completely different from ours, utterly impossible to understand. Poor Sun Kim was begging them to let him go, while Wang Wei kept his head low, simply too injured to speak. Those 3 soldiers just stared at them like toys. Duduhai grabbed my arm tightly. Let's go report this to the chiefs. This is too big for us. If we leave, they will die, I said. Then they died, it's just their fate. We cannot risk our own lives too. I totally understood his deep fear. In this world, ordinary people fear soldiers more than vicious beasts. Whenever war breaks out, civilians suffer most. But as for me, I wasn't scared. In my past life, I wasn't just some outdoor streamer. I was an elite special forces soldier, trained extensively in lethal close combat techniques, from sharpshooting to deadly traps. Against 3 ancient soldiers, I actually stood a pretty solid chance. If there really are only 3 of them, I am 80% sure I can save them. The chief paused as I spoke. Tell me how, he said. So we planned. The chief would show himself and run away, drawing most of those soldiers away from there, while I handled whoever stayed behind. It worked. Duduhai immediately leapt right out, and 2 of the 3 soldiers chased after him. Only 1 remained behind to guard the prisoners. I drew my bow, using just a sharpened wooden arrow. Pretty weak killing power, but it only hit his shoulder. He clutched the wound in complete shock. It didn't kill him, but it didn't need to. I quickly slung the bow on my back, grabbed my heavy axe and charged right at him. Wang Wei and Sun Ken couldn't believe what they saw. Normal peasants always run away from these soldiers. No one fights back, but watch me go. The Dezia soldier roared, swinging his heavy sword at me. The strike was incredibly heavy, but I didn't even try blocking. My past life combat training was ready. It had fully fused with this body. Over these past few days, I sidestepped almost instantly. I dodged his blade and buried my axe deep. On a brutal battlefield, when two warriors clash, it usually ends with just one strike. My bet paid off. He fell, shocked that a skinny peasant had ended him. Keep your heads down, don't look, don't say a word, I told Wang Wei and Sun Can. Then I quickly climbed a tree and waited. Soon, the other two soldiers came rushing back. When they failed to catch Du Dahai, they spotted their dead comrade and rushed right over. The moment they entered my range, I drew my bow once more, aiming straight for the throat. That first shot to the chest wasn't enough. I would not repeat that same mistake. My arrow pierced the second soldier right in the throat. He didn't fall, but he froze, slowly sinking into the snow, clutching his neck. He was finished, so I jumped from the tree and immediately cut Wang Wei and Sun Can free. Grab that sword and help me out here, I urged Sun Can, who was trembling all over. Yet he obeyed, and Du Dahai appeared behind him, cleaver in hand. Together, the three of us surrounded him completely. What do we do? Sun Can asked. He was calling me brother. Right then, I stared at the last soldier coldly. Whether he was a scout or just on patrol, I absolutely could not let him escape. If we attacked together, he would just bring backup, or kill us the moment we even flinched. Instead, the soldier tossed his weapon aside, fell right to his knees, pressing his face into the dirt in absolute surrender. But while I was up on that mountain, handling those Dezia soldiers, but back home, things had gone completely south. Du Chong had led the villagers back, but when they got there, armed government officers with burning torches were waiting. A county official named Li Zijiang showed up in person, and standing right beside him was Chu Long. But his real goal was not justice. He wanted to drag young men to the front. Since the border war was getting pretty desperate, needing fresh bodies, and anyone breaking the law could be drafted. Thanks to Chu Long, he now had the perfect excuse. These villagers had climbed up Yulong Mountain, a strictly forbidden area. He could easily call it treason, claiming they secretly met with their enemies, the SIA. Who told you people you could climb that mountain? The officials sneered, and nobody dared answer. The village women and children rushed out crying desperately, begging him, take our men and we starve. He did not care. Promotions mattered way more than their lives. Every single villager cursed Chu Long. He would die horribly. No wonder Chu Feng cut ties with your family. Chu Long just stood there silently beside our mother, absolutely cold. He even told the official. There were 4 more people up on the mountain, including me. Just as the officers started dragging the villagers away, my voice rang out from the mountaintop. We did not go up there to hunt, nor to make contact. We actually went up there to catch Dezia spies. Everyone froze, and the official stopped to wait. His face darkened. Lying to an official meant instant execution. He clearly didn't believe it, that simple peasants could capture enemy soldiers. Then, I walked into the torchlight. Dahu was right beside me, his massive cleaver hanging down. He was on my back, completely unable to walk, so I carried him down. And guess who was at the end of my rope? A Dishia soldier, hands bound tight, stumbling forward. And in my other hand, I carried 2 severed heads tied together by their hair, still wearing their Dishia military caps. I tossed the heads onto the ground, right in front of the official. You wanted to arrest these villagers for supposedly helping the enemy, right? Here's your proof they didn't. We climbed that mountain to protect our homeland from Dishia spies, and these are the results. I kicked the prisoner hard to the ground. He immediately started babbling in his foreign tongue. Talk about instant karma. The official's face went pale. He shrank back behind his guards. This man. I took down the other to myself. My flat response instantly flipped his tone. Someone ride back and tell the magistrate immediately. Every single villager stood there staring at me, and in their eyes, I saw admiration, fear, absolute shock, and something close to worship. Chu Long and my mother stood frozen, speechless. They escorted all of us to the town. Because of those captured Dishia soldiers, the local government got heavily involved. Even the county magistrate himself heard about it. But instead of throwing us behind bars, they actually gave us a place to rest. The very next morning, we were summoned straight to the government office. County Vice Magistrate Liang Zhang walked right up to me with a totally different attitude than the night before. He patted my shoulder and smiled. Congratulations, young man. He handed me a paper, an official appointment. I was named the Mountain Patrol Guard of Yulong Mountain for taking down 2 enemy soldiers and capturing another. It was not a real government job, just a forest ranger. Low pay, but to things really mattered. And honestly, I could finally hunt there legally. And second, I did not have to pay grain taxes. The villagers immediately crowded around to congratulate me. Nobody was jealous. They had all seen me throw those severed heads down. They knew exactly what this cost. That kid, Sun Ken, followed me like a puppy, calling me Brother Foam. Wang Wei was still home recovering in bed, but he and Sun Ken already told everyone their story. A highly exaggerated version of our mountain adventure, conveniently leaving out the part where they got captured, painting those Dissia soldiers as absolute monsters, which naturally made me look way more impressive. Once we made it back to the village, everyone went straight to the Chu family house. My mother tried to save face. She instantly put on a forced smile, declaring, as expected of a Chu from now on, you will get your full grain share. Come home anytime, you do not have to work. I stared at her coldly. Is the Chu family even worth returning to? I turned and walked away. Whatever the village did to them was their business. The village chief handled things with local law. Chu Long had reported his own people to the authorities, nearly getting the entire village thrown in prison as conscript soldiers. The verdict? Permanent exile. Chu Long and my mother were banned from the village forever. If they were found within 10 miles, they would be beaten to death. I felt nothing. They tried to destroy me and every single person who helped me. Not killing them myself was already mercy enough. All I wanted was to get home. When I finally reached our house, Zizi was standing by the door waiting, just like she always does when I go up the mountain. The very second she spotted me, she threw herself into my arms, crying, "You are safe." She kept repeating it. Meow and Bin Bin were actually still awake too, waiting way past their bedtime. Little Meow's face was completely scrunched up, ready to cry until I told her not to, so she swallowed her tears, and her adorable pout made me laugh out loud. Zizi quickly cooked a late-night meal, steaming some fresh sorghum rice that the village chief had gifted us. Then she mixed in pork lard, crispy cracklings, and wild scallions. Just simple pig fat rice, but man, does it look delicious. It literally smelled like absolute heaven. Little Meow begged for a taste, so I fed her a spoonful. Asking how it tasted, she just shook her head. "I do not know," she said. "Did the dog eat it instead?" Glancing over at Bin Bin. "No, I ate it too fast to even taste anything." "Give me another bite," Zizi and I just burst out laughing. We gave her a full bowl instead. The 3 of us happily ate our pork fat rice together, before finally climbing into the warm bed. I just lay there, thinking. I was officially a mountain patrol guard now. Higher rank than even the village chief. No more hiding my daily catches. Tomorrow, I would sell those pelts and extra meat in town, and buy some grain and supplies. We cannot just survive on meat forever. We need vegetables and grains. But right as he is drifting off to sleep, I heard a loud snap from the woodshed roof. Something had definitely triggered it. I threw off the blanket, running outside. That night, the iron trap on our woodshed roof snapped shut. Grabbing my axe, I ran. Bin Bin was barking loudly. At least he actually woke up this time. But when I climbed up to check, the trap had snapped shut on nothing. Meat was gone. Leopard Prince on the roof told the whole story. That smart cat managed to swipe my bait, escaping the trap. What a lucky beast, I muttered, locking the whole place down tight. I brought Bin Bin inside my room and went back to sleep. I was awake well before dawn. Today was finally market day. Zizi helped me prep the haul, 40 pounds of pork and 40 pounds of lamb, along with those 2 animal hides. 80 pounds total, resting on my shoulders. At the village gates, a man named Zhao Yusheng stood waiting with the village cart. And check this out, his jaw literally hit the dirt. He claimed everyone thought I got lucky up there. I told him, this is pure skill. During our ride, I learned a lot about this territory. Our Yulong village was ruled by Shuling Town, which also controlled 2 other villages nearby, Taiyuan and Shilyu, with Shuaisha City lying far beyond. The biggest city around, sitting right on the border with the Asai Nation. The 2 empires had been fighting over Yulong Mountain for ages, and regular folks like us always paid the price. When we finally reached the town market, it was packed with busy merchants, even a brothel, all acting like there was no war going on. Meanwhile, starving villagers outside struggled to pay heavy grain taxes. Man, The ancient world was seriously brutal. I set out my meat and hides, and within minutes, some guy approached me. He was actually the owner of Spring Wine Restaurant, a pretty fancy place in town. "Is that pork and lamb?" he asked. "I'll buy it all." "Follow me," he said. I was shocked it sold so fast. He explained that all local slaughterhouses had closed down, since all food supplies were being rushed to the front lines. Restaurants had to grab whatever meat they could find. He carefully counted out my payment. Pork went for 5 copper coins a pound. Lamb was 6, 40 pounds of both made for 150. Basically half a tael of silver. Pretty serious cash for a simple villager. But he quickly stopped me before I left. "Can you keep supplying me? We are always short on ingredients." I told him I was the official mountain patrol guard. His face completely lights up. "Perfect. Just one more thing. A wealthy man's birthday feast is coming up. I urgently need oil toads and crayfish. 10 coins per toad and 2 per crayfish. Bring however many you can catch. I will buy hundreds, even thousands. I will take every single one." My eyes light up. "You mean it? My name is Lu Wenliang. This is my place. I stand by my word." We shake hands on the deal. "See you soon, Boss Lu." 450 copper coins did not go very far. Fine grain costs a total fortune. 1 tael of silver for a stone. I only bought 10 pounds, eating up over 100 coins. Then, I spent another 100 on some cheap makeup. And some powder for ZZ. She definitely deserves something nice. Plus 10 more coins onto candy figurines for Meow Meow. And just like that, half my cash is gone. Seriously, this won't last long. Just 1 pig and 1 sheep was not enough to build a good life. But when I finally returned to the village, Gaoda met me at the entrance, looking incredibly worried. "Hurry home, your father is causing trouble at your house." Wait, what father? I almost forgot he existed. The original. Chu Feng's memories barely even included him. He was basically a total deadbeat. Spent his whole life just lying in bed, never worked a day or earned a single coin. When they kicked out my mother and Chu Long yesterday, this so-called father did not even show his face. Just as I arrived, that old man suddenly appeared. He was aggressively pulling Meow Meow by her tiny arm, desperately trying to drag her away. ZZ held our little girl close, refusing to let go. Neighbors stood around, screaming at him to stop, but the old man screamed like a complete lunatic, shouting that Chu Feng kicked out his mother and brother, yelling he cannot live, threatening to drag his granddaughter to the river, to drown together. Honestly, who wouldn't lose their mind? Something inside me snapped. I gripped his arm and squeezed hard, squeezing until his face twisted in pain. He immediately let go of Meow Meow. I asked, "Do you want to die?" Icy cold, I threw him straight to the dirt. He rolled around, putting on an act, wailing about how his own son was a beast, who destroyed the family. Classic emotional blackmail. I pressed my cold axe against his neck. Everyone froze. The chief stepped in. He grabbed me, yelling, "He's your father, you will go to prison." I looked back at ZZ and Meow Meow. If I do not stop him now, what happens when he targets my family again? Ask yourself. Once again, the chief had no answer. I raised the axe. The old man realized I wasn't weak anymore. No more obedient Chu Feng. He scrambled away, terrified. He came here expecting his old tricks to work, threatening suicide, expecting his soft son to yield. He never expected me to kill him, right in front of the entire village. But just as the axe was about to fall again, ZZ stepped right between us. Her big, tearful eyes stared straight into mine, begging me to stop. I froze. Instantly, neighbors rushed forward, some grabbing my axe. Others talked me down. If I had actually killed him, my life would be totally over in this era. Killing your own father meant certain execution. With 0 exceptions, the old man stood up trembling. His actual reason for showing up was simple. With my mother now gone, nobody was cooking or doing his laundry. He wanted to bully me into serving him. Honestly, that suicide threat, pure theater. He simply had no guts. "Just give me some rice and I'm out. I won't harass you again," he stammered. Stepping forward, I was ready to strike him again. But Sun Ken suddenly intervened. "He's your dad. You can't strike him." "But I can," he yelled, punching the old man. The old man ran, but Wang Wei tripped him, slamming him face first into the dirt. Sun Ken yelled, "If you ever bother Brother Fang's family again, I'll be waiting right here. No one touches his wife or kid." Wang Wei stood tall too, coughing but firm. If Sun Ken didn't scare the guy, Wang Wei, the local tough guy, absolutely did. The old man scrambled up and bolted away, screaming over his shoulder, "This isn't over, Su Feng. The old trash finally ran off. Over 50 years old and acting like a child. No wonder the proud Chu clan completely fell apart. Having such a pathetic leader in charge, ruination was certain. Once the crowd dispersed, Zizi and Miao Miao clung to me tightly. I'm quite literally all they have left. Zixiao's voice was still trembling, pleading with me to never be that reckless again. I softly promised her I wouldn't. Then, I handed her the cosmetic powder I'd bought. Instantly, all the lingering fear vanished from her face. She scolded that it was too expensive, yet she carried it to our room like it was pure gold. Next, I pulled out the candy figurines for Miao Miao. They had frozen rock solid outside, making them way more fun. She was literally bouncing up and down, begging to eat one alongside the premium rice I bought. Soon, Zizi whipped up a hot pot of rice. It smelled so amazing you did not even need a side dish. I had her pack a massive portion for the village chief. He always helped us out, even sharing his own grain. Gave me weapons, and just earlier today, he stopped me from making a truly massive mistake. I owe that man everything. At his house, his family welcomed me so warmly. Dijung sat quietly in the corner. They were actually eating real meat now. Seems my hunting was really improving their lives too. During dinner, I told him I wanted to keep hunting. He tried to talk me out of it. You are a patrol guard now. Plus, you pay 0 grain tax. You can live in peace. But I was completely honest. As long as this war continues, there is no peace here. I want to take my family somewhere truly safe. To a real town, or even a big city. I need serious money. He suddenly went quiet. Then he stood up and started searching through a shelf, until he pulled out an old sheepskin scroll. The second he unrolled it, my eyes went wide. It was a map of Yulong Mountain. He explained that their ancestors were actually elite soldiers, stationed here specifically to guard against those Sai's spies. That is why everyone had hidden weapons. And that is exactly where this map came from, handed down through generations. I studied it carefully, but it was rough and small, literally just 2 palms wide. But I could clearly see a red dot at the bottom, marking our village, showing the mountain terrain with dotted paths above it, and on one side, a flowing river. Is there actually a river up there? I asked. Yulong Mountain is half covered in pure snow. When it melts, streams of water rush downhill. The creek next to Taiyuan village starts right up there. And check this out, if there is a river, there must be crayfish. The restaurant owner promised to pay 2 coins for each, and 10 coins for each raw toad, with unlimited demand. The chief saw where I was going, and shut me down instantly. Forget it. Between here and that river lies a dense forest. A bear lives there. That has already killed countless people. That is the real reason Yulong Mountain is so dangerous. Keep your hunting to the outskirts. I nodded and did not argue. But I noticed Du Chong's eyes totally light up the moment he heard about those prices. I thanked the village chief and headed home. Behind me, I could hear his wife whispering, "Such a talented guy. It would be a tragedy if he got himself killed." Du Chong quietly said he was done eating, and left the room as well. I stayed home for a few days, just watching closely. That snow leopard had not come back, since it stole all our meat, and my father stayed locked up in the brew house. Good, but our food was running pretty low. I always cooked plenty for Zizi and Meow. Feeding Meow first meant supplies disappeared fast. I could not go to town too often either. In times like these, showing up regularly with meat to sell makes you a prime target, so once a month was my plan. Early that morning, Zizi made for massive rice balls, packed with wild greens, salt, and a bit of oil. I told her to keep 2, since they were made with our precious white rice, but she refused, packing all 4 into my basket. I kissed her gently before leaving. She turned bright red. You have to remember, girls back then were not used to that. Come back safe, she whispered softly. This time, I had that sheepskin map tucked in my coat. My plan was to push deep into the dense forest and find the actual source of the stream. That flows right down to Taiyuan village. That restaurant owner wanted oil toads at 10 coins each, and crayfish at 2 coins each, and he would buy literally as many as I could bring. In my past life, I had seen both species in the northeast wilderness. Those toads are actually northeast forest frogs. Tiny, but absolutely packed with flavor. Way better than bullfrogs. These crayfish are smaller than regular ones, but incredibly delicious. They only survive in perfectly clean water. Both species live right near streams, and both should be near that river on our map. Those toads will be hibernating in winter, but they should still be easy to find near water. I had barely left the village when I spotted 3 figures, squatting right at the entrance, Look at them, bundled up thick like literal bears. Just Sun Can, Dujun, and Wang Wei. Brother Feng, we've been waiting for days. They'd wake up before dawn every single morning, hoping to catch me heading out. Dujun admitted. He'd overheard my conversation with his father about the toads and crayfish, knowing I'd go after them eventually. For people are safer and faster than one. We'll do whatever you say. Just give us 20%. Honestly, he had a point. More hands meant more catches and better safety. All three had brought tools and supplies. They'd really been planning this well. But you follow my orders, no exceptions. The four of us headed deep into the mountains. No snow was falling today, but it was bitterly cold. We followed the map toward the dense forest, the same place where I'd rescued Wang Wei and Sun Can from those brutal Dashia soldiers. Think those soldiers are still around? Sun Can asked nervously. Probably not. Those three were probably just lost, stumbling into you. Two unlucky idiots, completely by accident. Wang Wei smacked Sun Can. He called you an unlucky idiot. Sun Can smacked him back, being young. Their friendly banter kept the mood light. Dujun closely studied the map as we walked. We'd been in the forest nearly an hour, getting close to the northern edge. Beyond that, the stream's upper section should be nearby. The main source of Taiyuan Village's creek. While the crew relaxed, Dujun laughed. His dad warned us about a forest bear, but we walked an hour without seeing anything. Wang Wei chuckled. It's winter. Bears hibernate, remember? Right then, I froze. Raising my hand, the whole group went silent. I stared into the thick snow ahead, frowning. You are right, I muttered. Normally, these big creatures should be sleeping, so why is he out? Then, we suddenly stumbled onto a pretty massive footprint. My son's entire foot easily fit inside. The giant mark swallowed his shoe entirely. It was quite fresh, so I quickly checked our map. This dense forest wasn't too big. If we headed west instead of north, we could completely avoid going deeper into the mountain and reach the upper sections of Taiyuan Village stream. Those scary bear tracks pointed north. Heading west was quite a bit safer. Head west, I decided. Nobody argued, so we pushed ahead. And thankfully, we slipped out of the trees without spotting it. Everyone exhaled. We found the stream still flowing despite the freezing cold. The rushing current kept the water from freezing over. Spreading out, we immediately started hunting. Oil toads were hibernating inside small dirt mounds. They're quite sluggish, making them pretty easy to dig out. But crayfish were much harder. They hid beneath frozen rocks right at the edge. We kept searching for over 2 hours. When we pulled all our baskets together, everyone had about 12 fat toads and over 20 crayfish. Not bad for our very first trip. I told the guys to wrap up before dark. We chose a path right along the forest edge, rather than cutting straight through. It was longer, but we completely avoided the bear. But watch this, here's where things go wrong. We got pretty careless talking, joking, totally distracted. Even I let my guard down, but then I looked up and froze. A massive brown bear stood just 30 meters ahead of us. It stared straight at us, motionless. This beast was enormous. Its shoulders stood over 1.5 meters tall. Body length was at least 2 meters. One ear had a chunk missing. One eye was blind. The remaining eye locked onto us with a gaze I will never forget. Cruel, amused, and hungry. My legs feel completely weak. Someone whispered, trembling. Stand up straight, I snapped. The second you show weakness, it will charge and bite your head off. In my past life, I'd studied bear encounters, but actually facing one, theory was all I had. Spread your arms wide and look big. Raise your weapons and walk forward. Forward, Wang Wei muttered in disbelief. Do you think we can outrun a bear in snow? They can hit 50 kilometers an hour. Keep walking forward. Don't let it think we're afraid. So the four of us spread our arms. We raised our weapons, marching straight ahead, shouting as loud as we possibly could. It failed, and things were about to get ugly. The beast started walking toward us. My heart sank as it approached. I could see every detail, the torn ear, the milky, blind eye, and those bared teeth, twisted in a sickening grin. This was no ordinary bear. This was the killer the village chief warned us about. A dark, terrible thought crossed my mind. I glanced at Wang Wei. He was still injured. He was the slowest. If I just ran, Dujun, Sun Can, and I could probably escape. A starving bear fresh out of hibernation needs food. Just one victim would be enough. Honestly, would you even blame me for thinking that? But with death staring you in the face, selfishness is honest. The bear kept coming. We could see its sharp teeth now. Then Wang Wei spoke up, rather Feng. If the three of us weren't holding you back, you can escape, right? I didn't answer. He told us. He told the group, if that beast charges at you three, run, I'll hold it off. My body is totally wrecked. I can't run anyway. I'll buy you time. Just promise me one thing. Don't look back. Then, gripping his hoe, he stepped past the three of us and walked straight toward that massive bear alone. I felt deeply ashamed of myself for even thinking about leaving Wang Wei behind. I grabbed his arm. Don't be reckless. Suddenly, the bear charged. It felt like death was closing in on us. Could I really just abandon this guy? He was ready to throw his life away so we could survive. Sure, Wang Wei could be pretty arrogant and jealous at times, but his actions just proved he was a genuinely good man. I couldn't just let him die right in front of me. There had to be another way. We backed up, but the bear immediately saw through our bluff. We were clearly all talk, and it picked up speed. Then, right out of nowhere, a familiar shape appeared right behind the bear. The snow leopard. Before my brain could even process it, the leopard sprinted forward and leapt directly onto the bear's back. Biting down hard, the bear roared out in pain, echoing loudly across the entire mountain range. Its hide was incredibly thick, but that bite definitely hurt. Honestly, my first thought was that we were completely finished. A bear and leopard. But then I realized the leopard wasn't actually attacking us. It was going after the bear on purpose. Why would a wild snow leopard even pick a fight with something that could easily kill it? I had absolutely no clue, but I recognized a golden opportunity when I saw one. Run. We sprinted. I grabbed Sun Ke and Wang Wei under my arms, with Du Cheng pushing from behind. We ran until the sky turned completely black. Thanks to that map and my sharp sense of direction, we barely managed to make it back to the village. Right before pitch black darkness swallowed the mountain base, we just looked at each other and laughed. That raw kind of laughter after you almost die. The three guys handed over all their crayfish and toads. Then, Wang Wei slowly shook his head. I believe the chief. Maybe that mountain isn't actually cursed, but it's deadly, and this life isn't for me. Dijun and Sun Can kept quiet about it, but their eyes said the exact same thing. They were done. Even I was pretty shaken, and I'd done outdoor survival my whole past life. Sleep simply wouldn't come. Why would that snow leopard ever save us? Wild beasts just don't think like that. Attacking bears is basically pure suicide. For any leopard, it made zero sense. Before dawn, I packed the toads and crayfish for the market. I opened the front door and took 2 steps. I froze. Look what was lying by the fence. I grabbed my axe. Get back inside. I ordered ZZ. It was that same snow leopard, collapsed in the snow, gasping for air. Its belly and back were shredded from that brutal fight with the bear. Dark blood had frozen solid on its white fur. It looked like it had waited there all night long. Seeing me, the beast slowly dragged itself up. It was holding something in its mouth. It stepped closer to me than we had ever been. My skin crawled and every hair on my arm stood up. I gripped my heavy axe, ready to swing, but it stopped just a few meters away. It opened its jaws and set something down in the snow. A tiny little creature tumbled out, squirming around and letting out a soft, kitten-like cry. A cub. The snow leopard stared at me one last time. Then it turned and vanished into the snow. The snow leopard fled, leaving me and ZZ staring down at the tiny thing squirming in the snow. It was an actual snow leopard cub, eyes still closed, crying just like a newborn kitten. It looked just like a tiny cat. Then it clicked. That big leopard was a mother. She must have had other cubs, and that bear probably killed all of them. That explains why she attacked it yesterday. Talk about a wild twist. Her revenge saved our lives. Somehow, she had lived long enough to develop some actual intelligence. She knew she was too badly hurt to raise this last cub, so she brought it to the only human who had once fed her. The irony stung. That old meat was actually bait meant to trap her. What is happening? ZZ asked, bewildered. Just bring it inside, I told her. We did not have milk, so ZZ mashed some rice in hot water and made a warm soup for the little thing. I could not stay. The fresh toads and crayfish had to reach the market while they were still breathing. I quickly ran to town and sold the entire catch to Boss Louis spring wine. It brought in 1 silver tael total. I split the money with my partners as agreed. 20% each for them, 40 for me. That meant 400 copper coins for me. I handed over their shares and rushed back. When I returned, a low growl echoed outside. My hand reached for my trusty axe, but once again, there was no threat here. She was dragging a small roe deer right toward us. The moment she saw me, she dropped the prey and vanished back into the snow. Honestly, I was speechless. She actually brought us food. Our family supplies were running pretty low, and I was already planning another hunt. Now I did not have to, since she caught one, probably all she could catch while so injured. Do these wild creatures actually have human souls? I wondered out loud to myself. Zizi mentioned that the elders often spoke of spirit creatures living on this mountain. Gently, I placed the small cub inside the woodshed. Old Ben kept sniffing it, barking nonstop. The little cub just finished its rice soup and fell asleep. Such a peaceful cutie. Since I'm officially the mountain patrol guard now, I butchered the hunted deer right out in the open. No more hiding. The village chief, Duohai, stopped by my place. He wanted to buy some of my meat, but then he got pretty awkward. He explained that the village had held a big meeting that very morning with the authorities. The state is collecting grain constantly, and families are completely running dry, so they wanted to see if I'd sell my spare meat directly to the local villagers at a slightly cheaper price than the town market, just 2 or 3 coins cheaper per pound. I said yes without any hesitation. Honestly, it's just simple math. Hauling all this meat to town takes half a day and wastes way too much energy. With zero guarantee it all even sells, but selling to locals at a slight discount saves me massive time and effort, meaning I actually come out ahead. Plus, the villagers can buy cheap from me, flip it in town at full price, pocketing all the extra cash. That extra money lets them buy grain for their taxes and feed their families. Everyone wins. I save time and they make money. They're genuinely grateful to me. This keeps my family's village position incredibly strong, making both Xiaoxiao and Miao way safer. Duohai practically dashed straight to the village square, where the crowd waited, shouting that Chu Feng agreed. And man, business exploded. Locals kept swarming my house, lining up just to buy meat. Wang Wei and Sunkin arrived first. They had absolutely no cash, so they bartered coarse rice instead. I gave them a fair trade. Most folks only bought a pound or two. No one has savings during a famine, but it piled up, clearing out all our surplus. Leftover wild boar, lamb, and roe deer meat, keeping only enough for my own family. The neighbors did not just eat it themselves, carrying all that extra meat to town, selling it off for a nice markup. That sweet profit let them buy some essential grain to pay off the upcoming taxes. My hunting was literally keeping everyone afloat. Soon, word traveled pretty fast. Other settlements heard the big news. Yulong village had an official mountain guard, a skilled hunter selling cheap meat to neighbors. Somehow, the rumors reached Shilyu village, the hometown of Zijiao's grandmother, old Wang Jiufen. She had ignored her granddaughter for 6 years, having sold Zizi off for a measly 2 bags of cheap rice, never even checking on her once since. But when she heard the gossip, everyone was buzzing about the girl. Her rich husband sparked greedy ideas. She kicked open her son Zhou Yushi's store, Zijiao's useless father, telling him there was a perfect chance to grab free food and some quick drinking money too. He got up instantly. We had absolutely no clue this storm was heading our way. That day, Zizi went to visit Widow Li, who was gifting her some silkworm eggs. I had sold Li some cheap meat earlier, and she was just repaying the kindness. Those cocoons would bring good money from town tailors. Next spring, while I worked at home, I borrowed a heavy hammer and anvil from the chief, and started smashing that old iron trap apart, bit by bit. This iron was perfect for shaping real arrowheads, deadly sharp ones, not those useless wooden tips. I already finished crafting 6 proper arrows, dipped in iron and fletched with feathers. The feathers came from 2 chickens I traded for, from the local carpenter. Those poor birds were running wildly around the yard, half plucked, while Bin chased them down. That rooster fought back, total chaos. Even Meow kept scolding Bin for bullying the chickens. But that little snow leopard cub, cute Meow, named Hua, finally opened her eyes. Since I was the first face she saw, and the one feeding her, she actually thought I was her father. She followed me everywhere, just sitting quietly and watching everything I did. I wanted to release her back on the mountain. Once she grew big enough, a growing leopard would eat all our food. For now, she was tiny and only drank rice soup, so I let it slide. Her mother had not returned since dropping off that roe deer. With her severe injuries and the dangerous wild mountain, who knew if she was even alive? I was busy hammering out another iron arrowhead when Bin suddenly started barking. Next thing I know, Senjin comes sprinting toward my house, panting, "Brother Feng, run to the village entrance. They are trying to steal your wife." My blood froze. Someone was actually grabbing ZZ in my own village. Grabbing my axe, I ran. I heard the loud screaming before even getting close. Zijiao's grandmother, Wang Shufen, was screeching at the village entrance, violently dragging Zizi by her arm. And her father, Zhao Yuji, stood right there demanding 100 pounds of grain. These scumbags had not cared about her for 6 years. They sold her for 2 bags of rice. She was only 16, and her mother died giving birth, so they branded poor Zizi as cursed. That was the only reason such a gorgeous woman ended up married to old Chu Feng, for absolutely nothing. But watch this, they heard I was doing great, so they show up with their hands wide open. But Zizi refused them completely, saying, even if we had food, you would not get one single grain. She was finally standing up. She used to be as timid as the original Zhou Feng. But things changed. She declared she wasn't a Zhou anymore. She was a Chu. So when her father pulled off his shoe to slap her, the brave villagers stepped in. An elderly man stood directly in front of Zizi, while Widow Li tightly grabbed the grandmother's hands. Sun Can and Dujun showed up, glaring with wooden sticks. Touch our sister-in-law and see what happens to you. But the old grandmother was clever. She threw herself to the ground and started wailing. She's turning complete outsiders against her own family. What kind of granddaughter would do this? Her father immediately copied her, kneeling and crying about being terribly betrayed. Classic emotional blackmail. The villagers couldn't really interfere with another family's messy business. They knew it, and poor Zizi started crying, completely helpless on how to fight back. Her reputation in the village was completely at stake. But wait, that's when I arrived, axe in hand. Other people might be outsiders. I'm definitely not, I declared. I marched straight up to Zhou Yoshi and kicked him square in the face. His nose exploded with blood and two teeth went flying. It happened so fast, nobody could even react. By the time they did, he was howling on the ground. The grandmother immediately jumped up screaming, "How dare you strike your own father-in-law? Have you no shame at all? Can shame feed my family or keep us warm? You never raised Zizi anyway. You beat her and sold her for 2 bags of rice at 16. Now you want 100 pounds of grain? Seriously, where do you get the nerve? She's our family, so she owes us. Fine, then I'll just kill you both right now. And she won't owe you anything." I raised the axe. Since coming to this world, I've learned one valuable thing about dealing with shameless people like this. You simply can't reason with them. You have to be even scarier than they are. Once you become more vicious, they will back down every single time. Then, I heard Zijiao's gentle voice behind me. She whispered, "Husband." I realized I could not actually use the axe. Even if Zijiao's family was absolutely terrible, murdering her father and grandmother right in front of her would ruin everything between us. The old woman slumped onto the dirty ground, utterly terrified to speak. Zhaoji hauled her up and they began dragging themselves away. While they cursed at us, Sunken stepped forward holding his stick. "Chu Feng will not touch family. But we absolutely will if you go around spreading lies. We will bury you on Yulong Mountain, and absolutely nobody will ever know." In lawless times like these, that threat worked. The local government could barely keep track of lives. If 2 people disappeared from a village, nobody would ever investigate. They were just about to slink away. But then, their luck completely turns around. The county vice magistrate, Liang Shang, walked right up with a squad of officers. Zhao Ji instantly threw himself down, showing off his knocked-out teeth and blood-covered face. He wailed that his wicked son-in-law brutally beat him, and begged them to arrest me. Liang Shang looked up, saw me, and gave me a subtle nod. Then, he turned freezing cold, filing a complaint. "Fine, drag this plaintiff straight to the courthouse, and give him 30 rod strikes first, as the law requires." Instantly, Zhao Ji panicked. He stammered that he was not complaining, claiming he just happened to run into him. "So, you are wasting an official's time. Do you know the penalty for that?" "No, sir," begging the official to forget everything. Liang Shang let him off with an icy warning. "You are not from this village. Leave now, because people die on snowy roads all the time." He was no fool. Clearly, he understood this powerful official was protecting me. Without saying a single word, those 2 just bolted. Everyone was totally stunned. They braced for trouble when the law showed up. But Liao just solved my entire problem. With officials backing me, Zijia's family wouldn't dare talk smack anymore. Once the crowd left, Liao got serious. He called me and the chief. "This is strictly official business. You know the rich Tia family. Their daughter was snatched during Old Man Jian's birthday party. We tracked the bastards into Yulong Mountain. My men do not know the terrain. But you do. 3 days. A full search party is arriving. You need to guide them. But first, head up there and find some clues. He gestured toward this huge, tough-looking guy named Tiachuan. The lead guard looked incredibly arrogant. He wouldn't even look my way. This guy stays here to work with you. Succeed, and you will be richly rewarded. Wait, isn't this pretty sketchy? Why would a mountain guard ever get mixed up in a kidnapping? But hey, the government pays me, so when they say go, I go. I figured out that Tiachuan was actually the kidnapped girl's brother. The Tians were a wealthy landlord family, having their daughter snatched during the patriarch's feast. Back then, daughters were usually considered worthless, so the court spending this much effort just to bring her back safely meant the Tians had some massive connections. Tiachuan had zero patience for waiting. We go up now, he snapped. So I headed home to grab gear, but seeing the hunting bow on my back, he instantly complained about illegal weapons. I shut him up instantly. Go ahead and report me. Then, go find someone else to guide you through those peaks, and let your sister vanish forever. He glared right at me but remained silent. Zizi packed me some vegetable rice balls, and we finally headed up the mountain path. I tried questioning him. At first, he refused to speak with me, way too proud, but I convinced him that sharing details was his sister's only hope. I asked how long they had been up there. He muttered about 2 days. She might still live. A healthy person can survive 2 weeks without any food. Water is easy to find with all this snow, but the cold is the real danger, especially at night. Temperatures on Yulong Mountain drop to deadly levels. Without shelter or a fire, they will not last a week. Maybe not even tonight. Tiachuan stared at me, hand on his sword. How does a simple village patrol guard know all this? I ignored his glare. Then I pulled out my sheepskin map. His eyes went wide. You have a map of Yulong Mountain. That only made him even more suspicious, since no such map exists publicly. So where exactly did they enter the freezing mountain? He pointed to the stream running near Taiyuan village. That right there is terrifying bear territory. I do not care if it is a dragon's territory. We are going, he yelled, drawing his sword on me. Relax, we are going. I took the lead, entering the dense forest. The snow was falling much heavier than previous days, making every single step a struggle. Within the first hour, Tiachuan was gasping for air. I barely noticed, completely used to it. He was supposedly a top 100 military exam candidate, yet he could not keep up with a lowly patrol guard. You know his pride would never let him slow down, so he just pushed harder, muttering to himself. Then the guy walked straight into my solid back. When I stopped suddenly, what? Tired already, he actually started to gloat. He nearly exploded. Nobody tells him to shut his mouth. Apparently, not even the vice magistrate. But his fragile ego was honestly none of my concern. We had safely crossed the dense forest, without ever running into that massive bear. Talk about a lucky break, but what lay ahead was way worse. Splattered right across the white snow was fresh blood. Honestly, it stood out like a sore thumb. Brilliant crimson clashing against pure white. Tiachuan rushed over and took a quick look. It is frozen, he muttered, so who knows when. That is pretty amateur, I remarked. He definitely did not appreciate that. I ignored his glare, focusing entirely on the ground. In my past life, my old squad leader once tried to recruit me into the police because of my forensic tracking skills. I even won a second-class merit during a military exercise. Because of it, this blood is less than half an hour old. Any older, and the falling snow would have completely buried it. Someone got hurt badly, maybe dead, since the wound was huge. The blood sprayed over 2 meters, meaning it was arterial spray. Look at these messy footprints nearby. Clearly, multiple people were involved in a massive fight. I walked around the blood pool and a tree, reading the snowy ground like an open book. Tiachuan scoffed at me at first, but as I wrapped up my analysis, his eyes went wide, and all his arrogance vanished. Replaced by deep suspicion, they headed north, and that is incredibly bad news. East led home, while west led to Taiyuan village. Either of those directions would be manageable, but north meant heading deeper into Yulong Mountain, up toward the second, higher peak, freezing cold and more dangerous predators. Plus, worst of all, the SIA soldiers. They use mountain paths to sneak into our borders. Where did you learn all of this? Tiachuan asked, studying me closely. Grew up in the mountains, I replied, without blinking. I can look at any animal track and tell you exactly what it was, and when it passed, which direction it headed and how far it actually traveled. And honestly, tracking people works the exact same way. He nodded slowly, saying with a skill set like yours, you would make a highly valued detective. Sadly, I don't have those right connections. I asked him if he really wanted to continue. From here, it only gets more dangerous. You don't have a choice in this, he muttered, hand gripping his sword, so we pushed forward. The tough climb between the first and second peaks was brutal, deep snow with ice underneath. Soft powder on top made Tianjuan keep falling. He kept whining about why we walked in zigzag patterns instead of climbing straight. There is less resistance on slopes. I started to explain, but then I gave up. Fine, walk however you want and fall off. That's your problem. Naturally, he almost tumbled right after I said that. That shut him up, following behind me quietly. Eventually, we reached the top of the second peak, but it wasn't a summit, just a flat, rocky, treeless plateau. No grass, nothing but white stone and white snow, stretching out under a pale, white sky. Just complete emptiness. Then, we finally see them. A whole group of people standing on the plateau. Why are we stopping again? Xiaozhuang started, but I shoved his head down into the snow before he could finish. We lay flat at the very edge of the cliff, looking at the plateau. About 12 bandits were gathered all around the stone boulders. Their leader, a bald man named Jiao Yushin, sat resting on a large boulder, catching his breath. His second in command, Xinger, was a skinny guy with a scar on his face. He stood nearby, and they spoke quite openly, never expecting anyone to be watching them. Jiao Yushin planned to hide on the mountain for a few days, before demanding ransom from old man Tia. But then, Xinger pointed out that the girl was pretty. Jiao chuckled and said that she could serve as emergency food. In desperate times, they would tell her father she lived, regardless of whether that was true. Suddenly, a woman's voice cut through the freezing air. Incredibly sharp and fearless, it was Tiaxian, the kidnapped daughter herself. Even with blood on her cheek from their rough slaps, she mocked them for calling themselves rebels, unable to even manage simple banditry. Honestly, you have to absolutely respect her guts here. Beside me, Tianjuan was grinding his teeth in fury, barely holding his rage back. He had heard enough, so I whispered that we should pull back and report. We found the bandits, mission complete, confirming she was alive. Go back, there is no time, he hissed, pointing out the army needs 3 days to arrive. My own men are just useless cowards, who will not even set foot on this mountain. And those monsters just talked about eating my sister. I am going, so I grabbed him. Look, there are over a dozen of them, and the two of us cannot fight that many. I was leaving, but things got ugly. He blocked my path, saying he knew where I lived, and that I had a wife and young daughter. Plus that little comment I made earlier, about which emperors were good or bad. I tell the magistrate, your entire family will be executed. He drew his sword, staring me down, pure escalation. This was not just some government officer anymore. This was the powerful eldest son of the Tia family, directly connected to the Grand General of Shuedia City. Nobody had ever dared say no to him. The mere fact that I kept actively pushing him back had completely pushed him over the edge. My blood instantly boiled for a moment, thinking about just how easy it would be to kill him, up on this quiet mountain where no one would find his body. Instead, I smiled, saying he was right. But if you seriously want to save your sister, listen, I have a better plan. He asked what plan. First, come hunting with me. I turned around and slid down the steep cliff. Before he could even argue, I shot a snow rabbit clean through the head, from over 10 meters away. Tianjuan watched it happen, and his suspicion deepened. No normal patrol guard can shoot like that, he muttered, hand resting on his sword. You are either a deserter from the front lines, or an enemy spy. I ignored him. Look closely, because this rabbit was the key. I sliced open the rabbit's artery to release the heavy smell of blood. Then we climbed back up to the second peak. We lay flat in the snow until dark, freezing, waiting. Just as the bandits came out to patrol, I made Tianjuan throw the frozen rabbit carcass right near their camp. Xinger found it and brought it to their leader. Jiao Yushin was highly suspicious, a dead rabbit appearing out of nowhere on a frozen mountaintop, but they were absolutely starving. They did not throw it away. Instead, they lit a fire and roasted it. Fur and all, the smell of burning meat drifted across the mountain. That was exactly what I wanted. My plan was not to fight a dozen armed bandits. With just 2 people, that would be absolute suicide. I needed reinforcements, the wild kind. Deep in the forest below, had a bear that refused to hibernate, while the slopes around the second peak had wolves. Both were starving in this endless winter. All I had to do was create a strong enough scent to draw them right in, killing the rabbit and letting its blood spread. That smell was only step 1. Having the bandits roasted over a fire was step 2. Cooked meat carries a scent much farther than raw. Within the hour, I finally heard it. Wolf howls, getting closer, getting louder, and the bandits heard it too. Xing Er was totally confused. Weren't wild beasts supposed to fear fire? But starving winter wolves are different. They ignore the rules. Those green eyes. A terrified bandit screamed from the snowy cliff edge. Xing Er just waved it off. Let them come. 13 of us versus some measly wolves. They are just dinner, hidden deep beneath the freezing snow. I watched those green eyes multiply rapidly. A massive pack of wolves gathered right below us. I had hoped a bear would show, but this wolf pack is a great start. Then the massive alpha appeared, 2 meters long. An absolute monster. Zhuang nearly bolted in pure terror. I held him down, forcing him to stay. Then, the wolves started climbing up. Boss, the wolves are here. A panicked bandit screamed. Zhao Yu. Tia shouted back, then kill them. I stayed buried in the snow, watching. Wait for it. The real show is starting. The wolves attacked, starving, and desperate enough to hunt humans. 2 bandits swaggered forward, laughing about eating fresh wolf meat. They did not understand wolves at all. The pack retreated, drawing them out. Then, they flanked from the sides. 4 wolves struck from the front. And as they turned to fight, 2 more wolves lunged at their open backs. Screams echoed across the snowy plateau. The other bandits rushed in, weapons ready. But these wolves were far smarter. They used hit-and-run tactics in the deep snow. The bandits had absolutely no formation, no teamwork. One by one, they went down, bitten hard, dragged away, throats ripped open. My plan worked. Zhuang stared in utter shock. You planned this from the very start. I just stared at him and grinned. Then, something completely unexpected happened. Boom, a thick cloud of smoke. The sharp scent of gunpowder. Ziyushin actually had a gun. A crude musket I had mistaken for a stick. He shot at a wolf but hit the ground instead. Frantically, he fumbled to reload near its paws, pouring powder and ramming the bullet way too slow. A wolf tackled him before he could finish. He somehow got a second shot off, hitting its leg. The alpha wolf. The pain just made the entire pack much more vicious. Ziyushin sprinted for the snow shelter. The hungry wolves followed him instantly. The giant bear arrived too. Zhuang saw his opportunity and jumped to rescue his sister. What an idiot. The wolves immediately locked eyes on him and turned. But then, wait for it, they actually bolted the other way. He almost smiled. Must be his commanding presence. A dark shadow fell over him. A massive wall of stinking fur blocked the wind. He spun around and found the one-eared, one-eyed bear standing right behind him. Looking amused, he tried drawing his sword to slow. The beast bit down on his arm, ripping it clean off. Then it tossed him aside like absolute garbage, and ran straight for the snow shelter. The walls smashed, and tore through the surviving bandits. It literally bit Ziyushin in half. Within minutes, everyone inside was dead. The beast was not even hungry, just pure slaughter. And guys, it slowly turned to me and actually smiled. An actual, terrifyingly deliberate grin. I have never seen such a creepy look on an animal. I could not run. Bears are faster than any human. I grabbed Zhuang's discarded sword, ready to face it right when I thought it was over. A mighty roar echoed from behind. The mother snow leopard leapt onto the plateau. I stared the beast down, its eyes burning with pure rage. They were clearly old enemies. It ignored me entirely and chased the leopard instead. Both vanished into the wild blizzard. I stood frozen, just catching my breath until the beast truly vanished. Save me, please. Zhuang was collapsed on the snow. He was holding his shoulder, or what remained of it. His arm was entirely gone as I approached him, but I did nothing. Do you know what I hate most in life? He rasped out, save me and I will make you rich. Leave me, and my family will ruin you. Still growling and threatening. Even now, the fool thought I was only leaving him behind. He did not understand. The second he dared threaten my wife and young daughter. Back on that mountain, my choice was made. Just look at that cold smile, matching the beast perfectly. What I absolutely despise, I calmly said, is people who threaten me, especially those who dare threaten my family. I raised my sword and swung hard. Zhuang's head went flying instantly. Crazy, right? Even at the end, he never thought I'd swing. A strange sensation hit my chest, perhaps some discomfort, but it passed quickly. I had seen plenty of corpses as a soldier back then, though I had never actually taken a life myself before. But this is not my past life. In this unforgiving, brutal ancient world, I simply cannot afford to leave them alive. Who could ever threaten my family? The absolute second he threatened Zizi and Miao. Meow, his fate was definitely sealed. Nearby, Tiaxian was still bundled up in thick hides, sobbing, completely clueless about what had just happened. Between myself and her cruel brother, she heard absolutely nothing. We had been too far off, which meant I had absolutely no reason to kill her. I am no monster, and I do not murder needlessly. Gently, I pushed the campfire closer to her, so she would not freeze to death. Next, I turned my focus to something way more important. The ocean was still holding that strange fire stick. Looking closer, it finally clicked for me. A fire lance, basically a primitive gun. It used gunpowder to blast out iron pellets, right through a straight barrel. Deadly within 20 meters, but highly unreliable beyond that. Past 50, it was useless. Barely a gun by modern standards. But here, this was incredibly advanced tech. Inside his black bundle were paper cartridges, prepacked with gunpowder, plus an iron loading rod, and a fire striker to ignite it. Actual paper cartridge tech. I knew this directly from military history. Think about it, in my old world, this tech changed warfare forever, letting thousands crush tens of thousands. This was a literal treasure, but incredibly deadly to keep. I snatched up the bundle and bolted down the second peak, running through the forest, past the first peak, heading all the way back. By the time I hit our village, dawn was just breaking, and a light was burning in our house. Zizi had been waiting up all night. I knocked hard. She opened the door and gasped, seeing me completely covered in blood. Listen close, I told her, handing her the dark bundle. Hide this where absolutely nobody will ever find it. Do not tell anyone, not even the village chief. If anyone finds out, our entire family is dead. She silently nodded, asking no questions. Next, I grabbed Tianjuang's sword and limped toward town, straight to the government office. I spun my tale to Vice Magistrate Liang. At least, the version he needed to believe. He supposedly fought those bandits bravely, but fell, while wild wolves and a bear finished the rest. I barely escaped with my life, running all the way to report. Liang almost fainted from sheer panic. Remember, Tianjuang was from the powerful Tia family, but when I mentioned that sending men out now would let him steal all credit for destroying those bandits, his eyes instantly lit up. He quickly sent me back up the mountain with 10 officers, meaning another long day of climbing. Those officers whined the entire way, but reaching the plateau, they froze at the sheer carnage. Human and wolf bodies lay everywhere, not one survivor. Immediately, they scrambled to claim all the glory. So, I quietly slipped to the back and tied 3 dead wolves together with rope. I asked if I could take them. Go ahead, they grunted. They did not care about worthless wolf corpses, not when there was easy credit to grab. The officers eventually found Tianjuan wrapped tight in hides, barely breathing, alive or dead, who knows. I did not check, would you? Not my problem. I dragged 3 wolves back home. The whole village was waiting, knowing something huge had happened, ever since I left with the government. And now, I was walking back alone, dragging 3 massive wolf corpses behind me. Wang Wei shouted out from across the square, "Brother Fong, you're incredible." As I walked in dragging 3 dead wolves, they just stared. These wild wolves had been terrorizing their homes for years. They had even targeted the village chief once. No one had ever slain one. I did not explain how they actually died. Everyone simply assumed I slaughtered them myself. And honestly, why would I correct them? Suddenly, Hai pulled me aside, worried. He swore he heard bizarre, unnatural noises from the mountain, terrifying animal roars, and a sound like a massive explosion. He stayed awake all night worrying. He anxiously asked if I was all right. I assured him I was fine, then butchered them, and sold most of the meat to everyone, charging my usual fair, honest price, cheap enough for them to turn a profit by reselling in town, but never so cheap they would take advantage. I kept some portions for my family, not in this lifetime, not that I had ever tasted wolf meat before. The guards finally marched down the mountain, bringing back Tianjuang's body while escorting Tiaxian. Trembling all over, she could barely even walk, but at least she was alive, passing through our village. She turned around and looked right at me. The first time I saw her face, clearly, even from that distance, I could tell she was pretty. But that wasn't really my concern. None of the government officers asked me a thing. They just left me to head home. Look who ran out to greet me, Binbin and Hua. Binbin was getting huge, over half a meter tall now. All thanks to the great food lately. He was growing so fast I could finally tell his breed. He's a lion dog, what we call a tanghound. A massive hunting breed once he gets fully grown. I'll take him hunting eventually, but not just yet. ZZ helped process the wolf hides. The fur was definitely the most valuable part, worth 1 or 2 taels of silver back in town. Unfortunately, the skins had damage from sword cuts, bullet holes, and nasty bear bites. They'd still sell, but not for top dollar. She asked if I was heading back up the mountain. I told her no, not for a while, since the new year was coming. Maybe I'd hunt some small game on the outer slopes. We had enough meat stored away. After everything that had happened, I realized my patrol guard position wasn't nearly as simple as I'd thought. Whenever the government came calling, I couldn't just say no, but I couldn't afford to give up the title. It was the only thing keeping my family legally fed. Meanwhile, things were moving back in town. Old man Tia wept with joy when his granddaughter returned alive. But when he learned his only grandson was dead, mutilated horribly, something broke deep inside him. 3 generations of only sons gone. He mumbled about his own son dying in the war years ago, leaving behind young Tiachuang and Tiaxian. Tiachuang was expected to carry his family name forward, but now he looked at Tiaxian with hollow eyes. Why didn't you die instead? If you had, your brother would still be alive. She said nothing, just staring at his body. Old man Tia demanded an investigation. A sharp detective named Lucci took the case. He had to find out exactly how Tiachuan died, and bring back whoever or whatever killed him. Lucci started digging. The savage bandits turned out to be from a gang called the Lotus Society. Their leader, Jia Yushin, was a vice chief. The gang still operated in town. Arresting them all would be tough. But get this, something else bothered Lucci even more. His junior officers thought the case was straightforward. Bandits simply kidnapped the girl. Tiachuang rushed in to save her, and got killed by bandits and wild beasts. Case closed, but Lucci just shook his head. Tiachuang was a highly trained martial artist, top 100 in military exams. Absolutely nobody in town could beat him one-on-one. But there were over a dozen bandits waiting, along with wolves and a bear. Lucci tapped his finger on 3 words in the file. Then why is the patrol guard still alive? The room went completely silent. We have about 100 pounds of meat left, and 100 pounds of grain. ZZ smiled, telling me this. Between the oil, salt, and seasonings bought in town, we had enough to survive the new year comfortably. For the first time since arriving in this strange world, things felt stable. I was already planning ahead. Wild chickens from the steep mountain, and fish from the stream by Taiyuan village. I would not go through that dense forest anymore though. Not after the bear. I'd take the long way around the mountain's outer edge. It was safer, plus I had the fire lance. Now it's hidden where nobody will find it. If I could use it quietly on a night hunt, maybe I could bag some wild birds my bow couldn't reach. That night, Bin Bin suddenly started barking like crazy. I grabbed my axe and threw the door open. 2 dark shadows were scrambling out of my yard. Without hesitating, I hurled the axe at the slower thief. It hit him square in the back. He screamed and collapsed. I snatched up my cleaver and charged forward. ZZ lit the torch, and I told her to scream for help. Her sharp voice was enough to wake the whole village. You won't believe whose faces the torchlight hit. My blood ran cold. It was my father, Chu Tia, and my own brother, Chu Long. Both were on their knees, Chu Long with my axe in his back. Luckily for him, his thick winter clothes saved his life. Instantly, they both started begging. We're family, we just wanted a little meat. Don't report us. But I felt nothing. Today you steal, and tomorrow you kill. I'm reporting you to the authorities. Wang Wei stepped up. He is right. Report them. The entire village agreed. Just then, Vice Magistrate Liang Xian arrived with the group. Talk about perfect timing. Du Hui told him. We had caught 2 thieves, robbing a patrol guard's home. Liang didn't hesitate, stealing from a patrol guard. The man who saved the Tia family daughter. 50 strikes of the rod, dragged them away. The officers dragged Chu Tia and Chu Long off. No matter how loud they screamed, I stayed silent, knowing Liang was making an example, showing the entire village that messing with me meant dealing with the government. Smart man. After the crowd cleared, things got way more complicated. The group with Liang included men from the Tia family, and a team of detectives. The Tia family servants bowed. He handed me a bag of rice, exactly 30 pounds of fine grain. Their thanks for saving their young lady. A rich landlord, can you believe that? Saved her from being lost forever. And their gratitude is just a bow and some rice. I stood in the wind, completely speechless. Then Detective Lu stepped forward, with sharp eyes and a cold face. He asked how Tiachuan died. I was ready. The bandits cut his head off. When wolves came, He stood up to protect his sister, but the bandits attacked him first. Ignoring the wolves completely, I hid in the snow, completely terrified. Grabbing his sword, I ran to report. I made sure my story was a bit messy, just a scared peasant describing a nightmare. Detective Lu watched me very closely, searching for lies, but my story was airtight. Even if my voice was pretty shaky, he ordered me not to leave the village. They would return with questions soon. Then he headed up the mountain himself, to check the scene himself. Honestly, that worried me slightly, but I was careful. The plateau only showed signs of the bandits, wolves and bears. Nothing pointed to me. Liao patted my shoulder before he left. You have talent, kid. If you ever leave here, find me in town. I will get you a real job. Once the officials left, I finally exhaled. Then Duhai asked me what happened up there. I only told him half the truth. The bandits and the officer were both dead. A wild bear killed everyone. He sucked in a breath. When I said the bear was awake, just then, Widow Li rushed over. Someone is waiting outside. They want you and ZZ. I gripped my cleaver, expecting her mother. Wei Zijiao's mother wanted revenge, since I sent her husband and son to prison. But it wasn't her, it was Zijiao's grandmother. Wang Shufen was lurking in the distance, alongside some completely random middle-aged man I had never seen. That is my uncle, Zizi whispered quietly. Her face froze solid. Zhao Yuchang dropped directly to his knees the moment he saw us. Please, niece. Your grandmother and father have absolutely no food left. Just spare us some grain. I am begging you. Surprisingly, the whole tense standoff resolved itself, without a single fight breaking out. This uncle, Zhao Yuchang, was way smarter than her dad. He just knelt there, acting completely pitiful. Never speaking harshly, he just begged for grain. Claiming her grandmother and father literally had nothing to eat, I looked at ZZ, leaving the final choice to her. These were her family, after all. Whatever lingering feelings she still had for them, it simply wasn't my place to decide. She looked back at me, then firmly shook her head. The grain is ours, why should we give them anything? Her uncle suddenly grabbed her leg. We are still family, but ZZ yanked herself free. You want grain? Bring money or something real to trade. Nothing is ever free. She walked away without looking back even once. I followed, while the widow Li warned them to never come begging in our village again. Just outside the village, I caught a glimpse of the old grandmother's face. Her eyes held pure, absolute venom. The uncle quietly told her to forget about pride. Does pride feed you? We will return later with a totally different approach. Over the next days, honestly, life settled into a comfortable rhythm. I stopped going deep into the cold mountain. The snow was getting way too thick. Soon, those mountain trails would become completely impassable. With the New Year fast approaching, I focused entirely on getting our supplies in order. Meanwhile, Bin Bin and Hua were growing fast. Even Meow Meow, no outrunning either of them anymore. She could not even wrestle Bin Bin. Zizi kept counting our supplies over and over. Lamb, venison, crayfish, and oil toads like it was her favorite game. Just watching her smile while she counted made me happy. One afternoon, I locked myself in the bedroom, climbed up onto the bed frame, and pulled down that black bundle from the ceiling beam. Look closely, I finally had time to steady this fire lance. As a former soldier, I absolutely love firearms. In my bones, but I had never seen anything this primitive. The barrel and handle were not even one piece. Everything was hand-hammered by some local blacksmith, and welded together at high temperatures. This thing was cruder than even early Ming Dynasty fire lances, from my old world's history. Still, the materials were pretty solid, heavy iron throughout. The small bore meant using less gunpowder per shot, which meant less pressure. That meant almost zero chance of the barrel exploding. The main trade-off was weak power, but for hunting birds at close range, it would work. But man, the ammunition was almost comical. Irregular iron pellets stuffed into simple paper cartridges, deadly within 20 meters, but completely useless beyond 50. For my needs, it was pretty perfect. Wrapping it back up, I grabbed my axe and basket, going to check the outer slopes for wild chickens. I told ZZ. She did not even look up from counting her coins. Be careful, meow. She did not ask to come along. After freezing on her last trip, falling into snow drifts, she had learned her lesson. Smart girl. I headed up the mountain with that fire lance, safely hidden inside. Wild chickens are everywhere on Yulong Mountain, but they are fast and skittish. The old rope traps using spoiled rice as bait was painfully slow, but with this fire lance, I could hit them now. I climbed up a tall tree. I wedged myself between the branches, holding completely still, literally becoming one with the tree, just blending into the mountain, waiting. That's when I heard it, the rustle of wings, a soft clucking sound. They were here. Too bright. Wild chickens landed on a branch 30 meters away. They were clucking without a single care. Wild chickens face plenty of predators, but almost no one can actually catch them. They're too fast and alert, instantly taking off to the highest treetops, at the absolute slightest sign of danger. But watch this, they have never faced my fire lance. I quietly pulled it out and loaded the black powder, keeping my trusty fire striker completely ready. Timing was absolutely everything once that fuse caught fire, giving me roughly 3 seconds before the blast. I locked my eyes on them until they paused. Deep breath, lighting the fuse, lined up, then bang. One bird fell straight down from the branch, dropping like a stone, while the other sat there completely dazed. Before escaping, if only I could shoot twice. But this primitive weapon only fires once per reload. Still, a single wild chicken, weighing almost 10 pounds, was an absolute jackpot. I stepped on its neck to finish it quickly. No need to let it suffer anymore. Next, I began scaling trees to search for nests. These wild birds usually build nests high up in pines, making it a slippery, highly dangerous climb. I checked well over a dozen nests, until I finally hit the absolute jackpot, wild eggs. 10 eggs total, and most were fertilized. If I can successfully hatch them, I'll have a flock. Wild chickens go for over 100 copper coins, pricier in town than normal meat. Since they are wild game, I could raise them and let them breed nearby. That would eventually secure a pretty steady supply. Maybe even starting my own little poultry farm down the line. Just as I was packing up for home, a distant wolf howl echoed once more. I had been hearing those ominous cries all day. They were far, but closing in fast. I scaled a small hill to get a look, for figures were desperately fleeing through the snow. 1 woman and 3 men, running for survival. Right behind, 8 wolves trailed them closely, not attacking yet, just herding them like sheep. I knew those beasts. They were the same pack from the second peak, still carrying heavy wounds from their fight with the bandits. Their massive bear alpha was dead. Yet, they still hunted together. Then wait, I looked closer at the group and froze. That lead woman wearing a pale yellow dress. It was Taxian, the family's daughter. The exact girl I literally just rescued a few days ago. What was she even doing back out here? 8 wolves, saving them wasn't my first thought. It was about money, since wolf pelts sell high. If I could bag a few more, I wouldn't have to hunt again before New Year. These beasts were pretty weak, limping from that brutal fight on the peak. No leader left. They weren't even actually trying to strike the runners, just herding them like sheep. But against a grown man carrying a sharp weapon, they stood absolutely zero chance. But I couldn't use my fire lance. Too many witnesses. My axe would do. I ducked down, letting the 4 runners sprint past. As they got close, watch this. I stood straight up and forcefully hurled my axe. It spun clean through the air, slamming directly deep into a wolf's neck. A clean neck wound keeps pelts flawless. Easy money. I sprinted forward. I ripped my axe out, then spun around to face the rest of the pack. Without their alpha leader, they had absolutely no courage. They just glanced at each other, staring down at their dead companion. They slowly backed away as I took a step forward. That did it. They turned and bolted. I really wished I was alone with that fire lance. I could have easily bagged 2 or 3 more. But hey, 1 wolf still brings good money. I secured the dead beast with rope, and began hauling it back through the heavy snow. I paid absolutely zero attention to the folks I had accidentally saved. But then a voice shouted, "Thank you for saving us." Looking up, it was Taxian, the very girl I helped rescue from those bandits. Just a few days ago, what was she doing back here? She quickly explained. She had brought her incredibly wealthy friends up here, just to try hunting for fun. They figured it would be so easy, until the wolves actually showed up. Honestly, I was speechless. Her own brother literally just died on this mountain. Investigators were still looking into it. And here she was, playing tourist with rich kids. "Can you guide us on a hunt? I hear you are pretty skilled." She asked. "No time." I replied coldly, "For guys like me, hunting is about risking your life to feed your family. For them, it is just entertainment. They have no respect for the mountain." Then, one of her flashy friends stepped forward. She called him Dazui. He shoved me. "Who do you think you are? You are just a patrol guard. I could get you fired with a single word." Something dark slowly stirred inside me. Since killing Tietuan, a cold feeling had taken over. My hand tightened around my axe. I just glared at this kid until the blood completely drained from his face. Taeshan quickly stepped between us. Shut up. He literally just saved your life. And you did not lift a finger against those wolves. Yourself. I turned and walked off without another word. I had absolutely zero time for spoiled rich brats. I just wanted to get back home and let ZZ know about the Wolf behind me. I heard that loudmouth, Dizui, grumbling. It was just one Wolf. If I was ready, I could have done the exact same. Sure he could. Since leaving Tanks and Science Group, I kept searching for wild chicken nests along the mountain's outer edges. No luck today, over a dozen empty nests, but I already had 10 eggs and a chicken. The eggs were the real prize here anyway, right? I had built a warm spot near our heated bed, perfect for hatching some cute little chicks now. That could mean a whole flock later. I was heading home when a sharp arrow whistled past. Instinct dropped me flat. The projectile buried itself deep into the dirt, right where my face had just been. A huge, scarred man stepped from the trees, grinning. Sorry, buddy. Almost hit you by accident. 4 more men appeared right behind him. Trust me, they looked incredibly hostile. I just stood up and smiled. No harm done. He asked what was in my basket. Just a chicken and some eggs. Want to see? I opened it up. But when he leaned down to look, I swung my heavy axe into his neck. Guess where his head landed? In my basket. Before the other 4 could even react, I charged forward and sliced the second down. The remaining 3 screamed and fled. Wailing in terror, I chased them a few steps, but let them go once they got too far. That arrow was definitely no accident. It was aimed right at my head. These thugs actually wanted to rob and murder me. I have been visiting the town market with valuable goods for weeks now. Someone must have been trailing me. I grabbed the dead man's bow and arrows. Very useful. Then I heard a gasp behind me. Tiadin and her friends had been following me, hoping I would lead them safely down the mountain. They saw everything. Perfect. You saw what just happened? I asked. Tieshan just nodded, too terrified to speak. Even Dazwai, the mouthy one, kept completely silent for once. I had to report this. Let us head into town together. At the government office, I explained everything to Vice Magistrate Liao, framing those mountain attackers as bandits, likely linked to the Lotus Society gang, who kidnapped Tieshan. It made things much cleaner. Liao nodded along. Since Tieshan's group could back up my story, I dropped the scarred man's head in the corner and headed back to the village. Dodahai was waiting right at the entrance, looking worried as usual. I told him about being ambushed on the mountain, killing one guy and reporting it to the law. His face turned completely pale. Wait, the man you killed, was his face covered in scars? Asking if he knew him, he let out a long, heavy sigh. Come inside. We have to talk, he said, bringing me to his house. His wife cooked the wild chicken I brought, while Dujung set up the table on the heated bed. The 3 of us sat down. Dodahai looked me right in the eyes, his face grim. That man was no bandit. He was actually the son of the Taiyuan village chief. Taiyuan village. I knew it. It was the largest village near Yulong Mountain, with more people and resources, including a wild peach grove they had fought over and taken from Shilua village. Their village chief was incredibly powerful, so even Vice Magistrate Liao treated him with respect. Our Yulong village usually got a pretty cold shoulder. Dodahai asked if I was sure they attacked first. I told him I had 4 witnesses and had already filed the report. He seemed somewhat relieved, though he could not hide the worrying in his eyes. We drank some rice wine together. There is no distilled liquor in this dynasty, since nobody has figured out distillation yet. That really got me thinking. If I ever get the chance to brew proper alcohol, that could be a serious money maker. We drank late into the night with Dujung, but after I left, I had no idea. That Dodahai told his son to alert everyone in the village. First thing in the morning, he made it clear nobody bullies our people, especially not Chu Feng. We owe him our lives. I walked back feeling pretty relaxed, carrying some leftover chicken soup. Bin Bin heard me and immediately started barking, then ran crazy circles around my legs. Then each clung to my pants, trying to climb my shoulder. I gently swatted her off. Before she could knock the soup from my hands, Zizi was already waiting by the door. Dodahai's wife had stopped by earlier to explain that I was eating over there. Otherwise, Zizi would have been worried sick. Look, chicken soup, I smiled, handing her the bowl. Isn't this for New Year? She looked a little disappointed. Don't worry, there are plenty more on the mountain. Then, Meow Meow stumbled out of the bedroom, rubbing her eyes. Daddy, Mommy refused to go. To sleep without you. We were both waiting. When I set the warm soup before her, her tiny nose twitched twice. Chicken soup. She'd heard the other kids bragging about how absolutely delicious it tasted, without any salt or seasoning. It was simple, but to Meow, it was the best thing she ever tasted. Her little eyes lit up with each sip. The meat inside made her even happier. So we enjoyed the soup together. Before bed, I placed the 10 eggs I found at the warm end of our heated bed, a cozy platform I'd built during renovations, right where the hot stove air collects. Perfect for incubating. When will they hatch? Meow asked eagerly. Pretty soon, and we'll have our own chickens. Plus plenty of eggs, and the first is yours. Yeah, I gently patted her head. Life was finally getting better. Zizi counted our supplies with a warm smile. Even Meow dreamed of eggs, making me feel quite hopeful. In my past life, I was just an orphan, never knowing what family actually felt like. This new world was way harder in every way. But my wife gave me absolute everything, and a sweet daughter who thought I was a hero. What more could I possibly ask for? But as you know, that peace shattered before dawn. Get out here, you worthless patrol guard. Come out right now, or I'll burn your house. Some stranger was screaming. I woke up to aggressive shouting right before dawn. An armed mob of angry strangers was demanding I come out, threatening to burn my house down. Luckily, Vice Magistrate Liao was there to help, barely keeping them from rushing inside. The angry old man leading them was Guillaume. He was the chief of Taiwan village, and the father of the scarred man I killed. He even brought one of the survivors who pointed directly at me. Trembling, that's him. He chopped the head right off. Wei Young played the grief-stricken father incredibly well. My boy never hurt anyone. He was loved by everyone in Taiyuan village. This ruthless murderer must face justice. I gripped my heavy axe and stepped toward them, but Zizi quickly caught my arm. Don't go, Meow cried. She grabbed my sleeve tightly, too. Ben stood at the doorway, barking at them. Even little Hua was hiding in the shadows, with fur bristling, ready to pounce. My entire family, even the pets, stood before me. Nobody was backing down. Then, look at that, torches lit up the crowd, as Du Gao's sharp voice cut through the dark, bringing this massive crowd right to my village, without even saying hello first. Where are my manners as your host? Every single man in Yulong stood armed and ready to fight. Liao turned pale. He had followed Taiyuan solely to prevent this clash. Two villages clashing meant his head on the chopping block. He ordered Duhai to back down, but Duhai was absolutely not backing down this time. Smiling politely, the chief countered, "These are my villagers standing in their own home. I cannot control what they do." Liao threatened Duhai with rebellion charges, but Duhai fired right back. Taiyuan village brought an armed mob right to our doorstep. If anyone is rebelling, it is them. Then, Duhai did something I never expected. He walked up to Guo Young, pointed straight at his nose, and called him a shameless old man to his face. Your scarred son spent years terrorizing Taiyuan village, robbing, burning and killing, hiding behind his daddy, the village chief. Everyone knows it. He invaded Yulong Mountain, our territory, and tried to murder our guard over a single wild chicken. Chu Feng simply defended himself from attackers. Take this, anywhere you want, we are in the right. The whole village stood behind those bold words. Every single person. See, they remembered the days before my hunting. 1 meal a day. Grain taxes every 2 weeks. Everyone was starving until I shared my meat. I even helped them make money. Not a single person in Yulong village had died of hunger since I arrived. They owed me, and in this harsh era, people remember that. Wang Wei pushed forward. You want to take Chu Feng over my dead body. He saved my life twice. Let them investigate. Until then, he stays right here. Guo Young tried appealing to Liao again. Liao fell completely silent, eyeing me as if calculating his next move. Suddenly, a rock sailed straight into the Taiwan crowd. They hurled one right back. Wang Wei roared out, "They are attacking us in our own village. Charge, brothers!" The massive brawl erupted instantly. Wang Wei lunged forward first, swinging his heavy club at the nearest Taiwan villager. In seconds, both villages were brawling. These were not just half-hearted scuffles. From my past life, these people swung hoes, sickles, and clubs at each other's heads without hesitation. Blood flowed fast. Liao screamed for order, but nobody listened. His authority meant absolutely nothing. When their raw village pride was on the line, I grabbed my axe and left. Every single person in my village was fighting for me. I could not stand on the sidelines. Then, Echoing from the distance came the sound of marching. Detective Lu Shi arrived with over 100 officers and soldiers. They had come to track down those Lotus Society cultists who had fled into Yulong Mountain. Just seeing 100 heavily armed government soldiers froze both angry villages mid-swing. Lu Shi did not care about our village feud, but his next words changed everything. By law, absolutely nobody except the patrol guard is allowed on Yulong Mountain. Anyone entering is treated as a potential rebel, and if the patrol guard kills them, that's just their own bad luck. This matter is closed. Anyone who keeps pushing it answers directly to my sword. Then, he marched his men straight up, never once looking back. After they were gone, Wei Yong grabbed Liao's leg, begging him to intervene, and that's when I stepped in. Do you still believe your son was just hunting? I asked calmly. I'm the guard, carrying an axe and a bow. Your son saw me clearly, knew exactly what I was, and he attacked me anyway. What kind of person? He actually attacked a government-appointed patrol guard. As the investigator just said, trespassing on this mountain is rebellion. Your son did not just enter. He literally tried to kill that guard. In fact, it seriously sounds like he is connected to the Lotus Society, making Wei Yong scream that I was lying, but I was not even addressing him. My words were for Vice Magistrate Liao. What do you think happens if DeLong's son really is deeply connected to the outlawed Lotus Society, while you have been backing his family this entire time? I let my words hang, and Liao was no fool. He and Gelong were actually related. That is why he always backed Taoyuan village. But associating with the Lotus Society meant execution for his entire family tree. Liao could not take that risk. He bowed very politely to Gelong. This dispute is strictly between your villages now. I did my part by bringing you here. Resolve this yourselves, and no more fighting. Then he turned and walked away without looking back. Talk about a disaster. Gelong just lost his only ally. Gelong stood frozen in shock as Liao walked away, and when he finally looked around, every Yulong villager had completely surrounded his men, staring them down in absolute, cold silence. One wrong word, and they would be beaten senseless. For the first time in his life, he caved. The proud chief of Taoyuan village backed down. This is not over. I will personally take this all the way to the capital if I have to. Du Dehai did not flinch. Go ahead, take it to heaven for all we care. After they finally left, Du Dehai let out a deep breath. He had never been this aggressive with outsiders before, especially with government officials watching them. But he could not watch his people get bullied. That is not what a village chief does. Suddenly, Wang Wei and Song Ken walked up to me. Brother Feng, if anything happens, we have got your back always. Today, they proved it. First ones into the fight, last to leave. That's when I noticed the widow, Li's young son, Huzi. He had taken a nasty gash on his arm during the brawl. Only 14, skinny and small, but he had fought so bravely. His mother had pushed him to impress me. She wanted him to learn hunting, so he wouldn't spend his life starving as a farmer. When the kid asked if I'd take him hunting, once his wound healed, I said yes, without hesitating. Having some company on the mountain wouldn't be bad. One invited Hai Long, Wang Wei, and Sun Jin to stay with us for breakfast. Simple food, just millet porridge and coarse flour buns, but I also had some pickled vegetables from town, which made everyone's eyes instantly light up. Salt is quite expensive, so preserved food is a real luxury. During breakfast, the village chief brought up something that had been weighing on his mind. Chu Feng, I understand why you killed that man. He did try to kill you first, but once his first attack failed, did you really need to kill him? Couldn't you have just scared him off? Why not kill him? I calmly asked. Because your wife and daughter will visit town someday, and you can't watch over them every minute. Making powerful enemies puts them at serious risk. That hit me pretty hard. It reminded me of a rule from my past life. The principle that, when you have a happy family waiting at home, you should always choose the safest way to handle conflict. But I just shook my head. Village chief, I hear you. But that principle only works in places with actual laws and real protection. We don't live in the peaceful capital out here. There's no guarantee that man would have left me alone after one failed attack. What if he came back for my chickens? What if he brought back friends to beat me half to death? What if he actually decided to end me? Because absolutely nobody was watching, and he wanted exactly what I had then. I simply couldn't afford to gamble. Wang Wei and Sun Can stopped chewing. They felt the exact same way but couldn't explain it. Du Guhai stroked his beard and didn't argue. He just listened. Du Guhai went quiet after my speech. Thinking it over, Wang Wei and Sun Can gave me a thumbs up. They completely agreed with me, but they could never put it into words. But get this, Widow Li suddenly bursts in crying. Huzi is in serious trouble. We all instantly jumped up. Her 14-year-old boy was fine after the battle. Then, he suddenly collapsed cold, face pale, body shaking. I sprinted to her house, fearing the absolute worst. Please, let it not be tetanus from rusty tools. Those weapons the Tayman raiders swung were filthy. In this era, tetanus meant certain death. The village doctor, Zhangxian, arrived right around then. He took one look and demanded blankets. Stoke up the fire, but I stopped him. No, adding heat won't help. He glared, calling me a simple hunter. Not a doctor, so what do I know? Before I shot back, Duguhai stepped between us. But Zhangxian actually surprised me. Instead of arguing, he said fine. Tell me your thoughts, and I will assist.